The break room at Pinnacle Marketing smelled like microwaved fish and judgment. I sat at my usual spot in the corner, carefully pouring hot water over my store-brand instant noodles. Chicken flavor, because it was 10 cents cheaper than beef. "There she goes again," Bradley announced to the room, his voice carrying over the hum of the refrigerator. "Sophie and her gourmet cuisine. What is this, day 90 of the ramen diet?" "Day 112, actually," Melissa corrected, flipping her professionally styled hair. "I've been keeping track. It's like watching a social experiment in real time. How long can a human survive on sodium and preservatives?" The others laughed. They always laughed. The young executives and account managers with their sushi platters and sweet green salads, their craft coffee and designer water bottles. And me, Sophie Martinez, junior copywriter, with my 68-cent lunch and refillable water bottle I'd bought at a garage sale. "Maybe she's saving for something special," Derek suggested with fake concern. "What is it, Sophie? Saving up for a car that actually starts on the first try?" More laughter. I stirred my noodles and said nothing. I learned silence was easier than explanations they wouldn't believe anyway. "I bet it's for a new wardrobe," Melissa stage whispered. "Have you noticed she's been wearing the same 5 outfits on rotation for the past year?" "I had 7 outfits actually. 2 were in the laundry." "Leave her alone," said James from it, but even his defense came with pity. "Maybe she's got student loans or something." "We all have student loans," Bradley countered. "But we still manage to eat actual food. It's about priorities, James. Some people choose to live like humans." My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Probably another debt collector for bills that weren't even mine, debts I'd inherited along with my grandmother's broken-down house when she died 6 months ago. But something made me answer. "Sophie Martinez?" The voice was crisp, professional. "Yes. This is Harrison Blackwell from Blackwell, Sterling and Associates. I'm calling regarding your submission to the Hamilton Estate DNA Registry." My heart stopped. Around me, the break room chatter continued, but it felt suddenly distant. "Are you able to speak privately, Ms. Martinez?" I stood abruptly, leaving my noodles steaming on the table. Melissa made some comment about my urgent call from the dollar store, but I barely heard her. In the stairwell, I gripped the phone with trembling fingers. "I'm here. Ms. Martinez, I'm pleased to inform you that your DNA test has confirmed you as a direct descendant of Archibald Hamilton. Specifically, you are his great-great-granddaughter through his son Theodore's illegitimate line." I sank onto the concrete steps. "You're sure?" "Quite certain. We've run the test 3 times. You are, in fact, the only living heir to the Hamilton industrial fortune." The Hamiltons. I'd heard the name my whole life, seen it on buildings, museums, hospitals. Old money, real money, the kind of money that shaped cities and influenced governments. My grandmother always said, I started, then stopped. Grandma Rosa had always claimed her mother had been a Hamilton, cast out for getting pregnant by a factory worker. Family legend. I thought. A fairy tale poor people told themselves. Your great-great-grandmother, Elena Hamilton, the lawyer confirmed. Archibald's youngest daughter. She was disinherited in 1910 for marrying beneath her station. But the current will, drafted by Archibald's last surviving grandson before his death last year, specifically includes all biological descendants, legitimate or otherwise. How much? I couldn't finish the question. The estate is valued at approximately $2.8 billion, Ms. Martinez. There are properties, investments, art collections, and various business holdings. You are the sole beneficiary. Billion, with a B. I need to sit down, I said, then realized I was already sitting. I need to, when do I? We'd like to meet with you at your earliest convenience. Tomorrow, if possible. There are documents to sign, authentication procedures to complete. I should warn you, once this becomes public, your life will change dramatically. I thought about my coworkers upstairs, still laughing about my noodles, about my studio apartment with a broken air conditioner, about the 3 jobs I worked to pay for DNA tests from ancestry sites, hoping to prove what Grandma Rosa had always insisted was true. Ms. Martinez, are you still there? Yes, I'm here. Tomorrow is fine. Excellent. Oh, and Ms. Martinez, you might want to consider retaining personal security. Once news breaks about the inheritance, you'll need protection. After he hung up, I sat in the stairwell for 20 minutes, staring at my hands. The same hands that had scrimped and saved every penny for 6 months to afford the specialized Hamilton family DNA tests. The same hands that had eaten instant noodles while my coworkers dined on $40 lunches. When I finally returned to the break room, my noodles had congealed into a sad, cold lump. "Important call," Bradley asked sarcastically. "Let me guess. The ramen company wants to sponsor you." "Something like that," I said quietly, dumping the noodles in the trash. "Whoa, wasting food now." Melissa gasped in mock horror. "That's like throwing away a whole dollar." 68 cents, I corrected and walked out. The next morning, I called in sick. Bradley would make jokes about ramen poisoning. Melissa would speculate about whether I could afford to miss a day's pay. Let them. The law offices of Blackwell, Sterling, and Associates occupied the top 3 floors of a building I'd walked past 1,000 times, but never entered. The elevator alone was nicer than my apartment. Harrison Blackwell looked exactly like I'd pictured. Silver-haired, immaculate suit, the kind of presence that commanded respect. But when he shook my hand, his smile was warm. "Ms. Martinez, I can only imagine how overwhelming this must be." "That's one word for it," I said, trying not to stare at the original Monet on his wall. What followed was 4 hours of paperwork, verification, and revelations. The Hamilton fortune wasn't just money, it was an empire. Steel mills, tech companies, real estate holdings across 6 continents, art collections that museums begged to display, a philanthropic foundation that had quietly shaped education policy for decades. The family lawyers have been searching for heirs since Charles Hamilton died last year, Harrison explained. He was eccentric, never married, no children. But he was obsessed with family legacy. He spent his final years tracking down every branch of the family tree. And he found me. He found records of Elena's daughter, your great-grandmother. The trail went cold there, but Charles set aside funds specifically to continue the search after his death. "You were remarkably difficult to find, Ms. Martinez. Your family did an excellent job of building new lives." New lives. I thought about Grandma Rosa, who'd cleaned houses for 50 years and never complained. About my mother, who died when I was 10, leaving me with nothing but stories about a legacy no one believed. "There is one condition," Harrison continued, sliding a document across the desk. Charles was very specific. "The heir must undergo a character assessment period." "A what?" "Essentially, a review of your past 5 years. Financial records, employment history, personal conduct." Charles wanted to ensure the fortune went to someone who understood the value of money, not just the spending of it. I almost laughed. So he wanted to make sure his heir wasn't a spoiled rich kid. In so many words, yes. The assessment will take about a week. During that time, we'll need to review your records. I hope that's acceptable. Acceptable. 5 years of scrimping and saving, of being mocked for my frugality, were about to become my qualification for inheriting billions. "That's fine," I said. Harrison smiled. "I thought it might be. I've rarely seen anyone live as carefully as you have, Ms. Martinez. 68-cent lunches are quite impressive on a $40,000 salary." "You already looked into me. Preliminary research only. The full assessment will be more thorough." In the meantime, he slid a black credit card across the desk. "This is linked to a temporary account for immediate needs. The limit is sufficient." I stared at the card. "I don't need." "Ms. Martinez," he interrupted gently, "you're about to become one of the wealthiest people in America. The media will descend like vultures. You'll need appropriate clothing, security, perhaps a more secure residence. Consider it an advance on your inheritance." That night, I sat in my studio apartment, the black card on my coffee table like a dangerous artifact. I could buy anything, everything. The designer clothes Melissa worshipped. The luxury car Bradley bragged about. Dinner at restaurants where appetizers cost more than my weekly grocery budget. Instead, I ordered Chinese food, still cheaper than those sweet green salads, and made a list. The next morning, I did buy a car. A Bentley Continental GT in midnight blue, because if you're going to make a statement, make it count. The salesman's eyes nearly fell out when I pointed to the one I wanted and said, "That one. Cash." "Would you like to test drive it first?" he stammered. "No need. I'll take it now." 3 hours later, paperwork takes time, even for cash purchases, I drove to Pinnacle Marketing. I was 2 hours late, but somehow, I didn't think anyone would fire me today. The parking garage attendant did a double take when I pulled in. "Nice rental," he said. "It's not a rental," I replied, finding my usual spot between Bradley's BMW and Melissa's Audi. My Bentley made them look like Hot Wheels. I walked through the lobby with my usual clothes. Jeans, a simple blouse, flats from Target. But something was different. Maybe it was the way I carried myself, or maybe it was the Hermes bag I'd bought to carry my instant noodles in. Either way, people noticed. The elevator ride felt longer than usual. When the doors opened on the marketing floor, I could hear the usual chatter from the break room. It was 11:47. Lunchtime. I walked in to find the usual crowd. Bradley was holding court, describing his weekend trip to some vineyard. Melissa was showing off her new designer shoes. Derek was complaining about his mortgage. They fell silent when they saw me. Well, Bradley recovered first. Look who decided to grace us with her presence. Rough night, Sophie. Had to save up for the gas to get here. I set my Hermes bag on the counter and pulled out a cup of instant noodles. The same brand. The same chicken flavor. "Actually," I said calmly, filling my cup with hot water, "I had to stop by the Bentley dealership. Buying a car takes longer than you'd think." Melissa laughed. "Right. Sophie bought a Bentley, and I bought a yacht." "A yacht sounds nice," I mused. "I should look into that." The lawyers mentioned something about a maritime portfolio. "Lawyers?" Derek's voice cracked slightly. I stirred my noodles, letting the silence stretch. Then I pulled out my phone and showed them the photo I'd taken with the car, the dealership's congratulations banner visible in the background. "That's..." Bradley's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "A Continental GT," I supplied helpfully. "The speed model." It was between that and the Mulsanne, but I thought the GT was more practical for city driving. "This is a joke," Melissa decided. "You rented it. For what? To impress us? That's really sad, Sophie." I shrugged and pulled up my banking app, showing a balance that had more zeros than phone numbers. "You're right. It is sad. Sad that I've sat here for 2 years, listening to you mock me for saving money. Sad that you equated someone's worth with their lunch choices." "How?" Derek whispered. "Turns out those family stories about being related to the Hamiltons weren't just stories," I said. DNA test confirmed it last week. I'm the sole heir to the Hamilton fortune, all 2.8 billion of it. The cup of noodles in Bradley's hand trembled. "Billion." With a B, I confirmed, taking a sip of my cheap noodle broth. "You know what the lawyers found during the character assessment? 5 years of financial records showing someone who understood the value of every dollar. Someone who chose instant noodles over impressing coworkers. Someone who knew that real wealth isn't about what you spend, but what you save." "We were just joking around," Melissa said weakly. "We didn't mean." "Yes, you did," I interrupted. "Every laugh, every snide comment, every time you made me feel small for not wasting money on overpriced salads. You meant all of it." I picked up my noodles and my Hermes bag. "But here's the thing, I'm still going to eat these noodles. Because they remind me of where I came from. Of my grandmother, who believed in a legacy everyone said was impossible. Of every sacrifice that led to this moment." "Sophie, wait," Bradley called as I headed for the door. Are you quitting?" I paused. "Why would I quit? I like my job. I'm good at it. Although," I smiled, "I might buy the company. It could use some leadership that values people for their work, not their lunch choices." The break room was silent as I left. I could imagine them Googling the Hamilton fortune, doing the math, realizing that the woman they'd mocked for eating 68-cent noodles could buy their entire lives without blinking. My phone rang as I reached my desk. Harrison Blackwell. "Ms. Martinez, I hope you're being careful with the news. These situations can be delicate." "I just told my coworkers," I admitted. "And?" "They're processing." He chuckled. "I imagine they are. On another note, the authentication is complete. The full inheritance is yours. Congratulations, Ms. Martinez. You are officially one of the wealthiest people in America." I looked around the office, at my small desk, my ancient computer, the motivational posters on the walls. "Thank you, Mr. Blackwell." "What will you do first?" he asked. "Most heirs go on spending sprees. Travel, parties." I thought about it. First, I'm going to finish eating my noodles. Then I'm going to get back to work on the Henderson campaign. After that, I think I'll look into that philanthropic foundation you mentioned. There are a lot of kids out there eating instant noodles because they have to, not because they're saving for something better. Charles Hamilton would have liked you, Harrison said warmly. He ate peanut butter sandwiches every day for lunch. Said it reminded him that money was a tool, not a master. After we hung up, I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. 47 emails from coworkers who'd suddenly remembered how much they'd always admired my work ethic. 16 LinkedIn requests from people who'd never spoken to me. 3 text messages from Bradley asking if I wanted to get drinks. I ignored them all and got back to work on the Henderson campaign. Because that's what you do when you have $2.8 billion. You remember who you were before the money, and you stay that person. At 3 p.m., our CEO, Robert Chen, appeared at my desk. I'd seen him maybe 5 times in 2 years, always from a distance. Ms. Martinez, he said, slightly out of breath. I heard about your situation. News travels fast, I observed. Yes, well, he adjusted his tie nervously. I wanted to personally welcome you to reassure you that your position here is, that is, we value your contributions and… Mr. Chen, I interrupted. Relax. I'm not buying the company today. Today. He paled. Maybe next week. I want to review the financials first. Although I am curious about our anti-bullying policies, they seem a bit lax. He glanced toward the break room, where Bradley and Melissa were probably still Googling my net worth. I'll look into that immediately. Good. Oh, and Mr. Chen. I'll be setting up a lunch program. Free meals for any employee making under $60,000 a year. No one should have to choose between gas money and eating a decent meal. That's very generous. It's necessary, I corrected. You'd be amazed what people can accomplish when they're not worried about their next meal. He left, walking faster than when he'd arrived. Within an hour, I'd received a company-wide email about a new zero-tolerance bullying policy and the announcement of the Martinez Lunch Initiative. The rest of the day was surreal. People who'd never acknowledged my existence suddenly remembered my name. The break room, usually loud with gossip when I entered, fell silent every time I walked by. Bradley sent 17 emails apologizing for his behavior. Melissa left a Starbucks gift card on my desk with a note about how she'd always admired my discipline. I left at exactly 5 p.m., like always. The parking garage attendant was waiting by my Bentley with his phone out. Is it okay if I… He gestured at the car. Sure, I said. Want to sit in it? His eyes widened. For real? Why not? It's just a car. As he reverently slid into the driver's seat, running his hands over the leather steering wheel, he said, I always noticed you were different. The way you said thank you every morning. Remembered my kid's name. Most people here don't even make eye contact. What's your name? I asked, realizing I'd never known. Marcus Williams. Well, Marcus, how would you like to head up security for my new foundation? I'll need someone I can trust, someone who understands that people matter more than their bank accounts. He nearly dropped his phone. You're serious. Dead serious. Think about it. The pay will be competitive. I drove home to my studio apartment, parking the Bentley next to a rusted Honda Civic. Tomorrow I'd look for a new place, somewhere with actual air conditioning and maybe a kitchen that didn't double as a closet. But tonight, I had instant noodles to eat and a future to plan. My phone had hundreds of messages. Old friends who'd lost touch suddenly missing me. Distant relatives discovering our deep family bond. Charities requesting donations. Interview requests from journalists fascinated by the instant noodle Harris. I ignored them all and called the one person who mattered. Blackwell, Sterling, and Associates. The receptionist answered. Harrison Blackwell, please. Tell him it's Sophie Martinez. He picked up immediately. Ms. Martinez, how was your first day as a billionaire? Educational, I said, heating water for my noodles. I have a question about the foundation Charles Hamilton set up. Of course. Can we expand it? I want to create a program for kids from low-income families. Full rides to college, living expenses covered, no questions asked. But with one requirement. What's that? They have to write an essay about a time they were mocked for being poor. About how it felt. What it taught them. I want kids who understand that money doesn't define your worth. It just amplifies who you already are. That's brilliant, actually. Charles would have loved it. Good. Let's start with 100 million. We'll call it the Ramen Scholarship. See how many lives we can change. After we hung up, I sat on my threadbare couch eating my 68-cent dinner and thought about Grandma Rosa. How she lived her entire life believing in a legacy no one else could see. How she died 6 months ago, just weeks before I'd finally saved enough for that DNA test. I did it, Grandma, I whispered to her photo on the wall. Just like you always said I would. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hi, Sophie. This is James from it. I just wanted to say I'm sorry I never stood up for you more. You deserve better from all of us. I smiled and typed back. Thanks, James. See you tomorrow. I'll bring extra noodles. Because that's what $2.8 billion had taught me in a single day. Money changes everything except who you really are. And I was still Sophie Martinez, who ate instant noodles and saved every penny. I just happened to have a really, really good reason for saving. The next morning, I arrived at work in my Bentley, wearing the same Target flats, carrying my Hermes bag full of instant noodles. The irony wasn't lost on me, but then again, the best ironies never are. Bradley was waiting by my desk with coffee and a pastry from the expensive bakery down the street. Peace offering, he said quietly. I looked at the $8 coffee and $12 croissant. You know what would have been a better peace offering? Just being kind when it was free. He flinched but nodded. You're right, I was an ass. We all were. Yes, I agreed, you were. Is there any way to make it right? I considered this. Actually, yes. The Ramen Scholarship program I'm starting. I need someone to help identify kids who are struggling but too proud to ask for help. Kids who are skipping meals to save for their future. Think you can handle that without mocking them? His eyes widened. You trust me with that. I'm giving you a chance to be better than you were. What you do with it is up to you. He walked away with the expensive coffee still in his hands, looking thoughtful. Maybe he'd change. Maybe he wouldn't. But at least now he knew what it felt like to be judged for something as simple as a meal choice. By noon, news had broken. The instant noodle heiress was trending on social media. Photos of me from college eating ramen in the library. Security footage of me in the Bentley dealership, calmly pointing to the car I wanted. An interview with Marcus, the parking attendant, who called me the kindest rich person in America, and she was that way before the money. My email inbox exploded. Offers for book deals, reality shows, speaking engagements. Everyone wanted to know how it felt to go from ramen to riches overnight. But they were asking the wrong question. It wasn't about going from ramen to riches. It was about knowing your worth before the world decided to notice it. It was about Grandma Rosa, who scrubbed floors with hands that carried Hamilton blood. It was about my mother, who died believing in a fairy tale that turned out to be true. It was about every kid who ever ate cheap food while rich people laughed, knowing that someday, somehow, they'd prove everyone wrong. That night, I moved into a penthouse apartment with a view of the city. The realtor kept apologizing for it being modest at only 4,000 square feet. I didn't tell her that my studio apartment could fit in the walk-in closet. I unpacked my few possessions, Grandma's photo, Mom's jewelry box, my collection of instant noodle cups I'd been saving. Yes, I saved the cups. They reminded me of every sacrifice, every mockery, every moment that led to this one. The doorbell rang. A delivery. Inside was a case of instant noodles, the expensive kind, with real dried vegetables and premium noodles. The card read, "From Charles Hamilton's personal collection. He saved these for special occasions. Thought you'd understand. Harrison Blackwell." I laughed until I cried. Then I cried until I laughed again. Because somewhere, in whatever afterlife billionaire philanthropists go to, Charles Hamilton and Grandma Rosa were probably sharing a cup of instant noodles and smiling. And tomorrow, I'd walk into Pinnacle Marketing with my Hermes bag full of 68-cent noodles, ready to change the world one scholarship at a time. Because that's what you do when you have $2.8 billion and a grandma who believed in impossible things. You make them possible for everyone else.
The crystal glasses clinked as my mother-in-law's perfectly manicured nails tapped against them, demanding attention. My stomach clenched. I knew that look in her eyes. A toast. Anthea announced to our family gathered around the dining table. To my son's wonderful achievement at the firm. She paused, her gaze settling on me. And to Sydney, who I'm sure will make an excellent housewife now that she's settling into married life. I'm Sydney Craig, and 6 months into my marriage, I was already failing at being the daughter-in-law Anthea wanted. The weight of her expectations pressed against my chest like a stone. Actually, I said, forcing a smile, I have some news of my own. The Mumbai Chronicle offered me a position as a junior reporter. The silence that followed was deafening. Emery, my husband, reached for my hand under the table and squeezed it. At least someone was on my side. How interesting, Anthea said, her smile never reaching her eyes. Though I'm sure you'll reconsider once you and Emery start thinking about children. I don't plan to give up my career, Anthea. Journalism is my passion. Passion doesn't build a home, dear. She turned to her daughter Aurora, who sat quietly across the table. Remember when Aurora gave up that silly photography hobby? Now she's focusing on what truly matters. Aurora's eyes met mine briefly before dropping to her plate. I'd seen her camera hidden away in her closet, gathering dust. Mom, Emery intervened. Sydney's brilliant at what she does. You should read some of her articles. I'm sure they're lovely, darling. But we Craig women have certain responsibilities. Your father didn't build this empire, so his daughter-in-law could run around chasing stories. My best friend Kira's words from my wedding day echoed in my head. That woman's going to be a nightmare. I should have listened. I can manage both, I insisted. Many women do. Many women aren't Craig women, Anthea replied smoothly, taking a sip of her wine. Now, who would like dessert? Later that night, as Emery and I got ready for bed in our apartment, the tension finally broke. I'm sorry about Mom, he said, pulling me close. She's traditional. Traditional? She's practically Victorian. I buried my face in his chest. Do you remember our wedding day? When she gave that speech about molding me into a proper Craig woman? She means well. Does she? I pulled away to look at him. Because it feels like she's trying to erase everything that makes me. Me. Give her time. She'll come around when she sees how talented you are. My phone buzzed. A text from Ren, my editor at the local magazine where I freelanced. Story approved. Deadline next week. This could be your big break. Speaking of talent, I showed Emery the message. I got the green light on that corruption piece I told you about. His face lit up. That's amazing. See? This is why you can't give up. You're meant for this. Try telling that to your mother. Maybe we should invite her to dinner, just us. Let her see the real you. I laughed. The real me? You mean the one she's been trying to suppress since day one? Sydney. I know. She's your mother. I sighed, sitting on the edge of our bed. But I can't keep pretending to be someone I'm not. This job at the Chronicle, it's everything I've worked for. Then take it, Emery said firmly. I'll support you, whatever Mom says. I looked up at him, this man who stood between two worlds. His mother's traditional values and his wife's modern ambitions. Promise? Promise. He kissed my forehead. Besides, who knows? Maybe Mom will surprise us. But as I lay in bed that night, watching Mumbai's lights twinkle through our window, I knew better. Anthea Craig didn't do surprises. She did expectations. And I had just declared war on every single one of them. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Ren. By the way, heard through the grapevine that Blaze is back in town. Might be competing for the same story. Perfect. Just perfect. My first love and biggest rival from college now thrown into the mix. As if dealing with Anthea wasn't complicated enough. I turned off my phone and closed my eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. Tomorrow I'd start my new job at the Chronicle, step into the newsroom and prove to everyone, especially Anthea, that I could be both a Craig woman and a journalist. Let the games begin. London? I nearly choked on my coffee. You can't be serious. Emery paced our living room, his tie loosened after a long day at the office. It's a huge opportunity, Sydney. The firm wants me to head their European division. And your mother just happened to suggest this to the board? I set my mug down harder than intended, coffee sloshing onto our coffee table. She's looking out for us, he said, but wouldn't meet my eyes. Think about it. London's amazing for journalism, too. I just started at the Chronicle. I grabbed my laptop, pulling up the draft of my corruption story. Look at this. I'm investigating corporate fraud at one of Mumbai's biggest tech companies. This could be huge. The doorbell rang, saving Emery from responding. My heart sank when I opened the door to find Anthea, immaculately dressed as always. Surprise. She breezed past me, air kissing Emery's cheeks. I brought dinner, and the London property listings you asked for, darling. I shot Emery a look. He'd already asked for listings? Actually, Mom, Emery started. We haven't decided. Nonsense, it's practically settled. Anthea spread the glossy brochures across our dining table. This townhouse in Kensington would be perfect for starting a family. My phone buzzed. A message from Ren. Source willing to talk. Meeting tonight. Crucial for the story. I have to go, I announced, grabbing my bag. Work emergency. Anthea's smile tightened. More important than family dinner? It's my job, Anthea. A job you won't need in London, she replied smoothly. The Craig family has connections with all the right social circles there. I turned to Emery. Are you going to say anything? He shifted uncomfortably. Mom's right about the opportunity. Unbelievable. I headed for the door, but Anthea's voice stopped me. You know, dear, I gave up a promising career in dance for this family. Sometimes sacrifice is necessary for greater happiness. I spun around. Is that what you tell Aurora about her photography? The room went silent. Even Anthea looked shocked at my outburst. I'll be late, I muttered, hurrying out before anyone could respond. The cafe where I met my source was crowded, but I spotted Kira immediately at our usual corner table. You look like hell, she said as I collapsed into the chair. Anthea's trying to ship us off to London. I ordered an espresso, then lowered my voice. Where's the source? About that. Kira glanced toward the door. Don't freak out. Blaze walked in, looking annoyingly handsome in his pressed shirt and journalist badge. My stomach dropped. You're the source? He slid into the seat across from me. Surprised? I've been working this story for months. Of course you have. I started gathering my things. I'm not interested in your leftovers, Blaze. Even if it involves your father-in-law's company? I froze. What? The tech company you're investigating? Craig Enterprises is their biggest investor. He pulled out a USB drive. Everything's here, but I want shared byline. Why are you helping me? Because unlike some people, I believe in the story more than the glory. He smirked. Usually. My phone buzzed again. Emery. Where are you? Mom's upset. Please come home. Take it, Blaze said, sliding the drive across the table. But decide fast. Story breaks in 48 hours, with or without you. I stared at the drive. If what Blaze said was true, this story wouldn't just rock Mumbai's corporate world, it would blow my marriage apart. Sydney? Kira touched my arm. You okay? No. I pocketed the drive. But I'm going to do my job anyway. When I got home, the apartment was dark except for Emery's desk lamp. He looked up as I entered. Mom's gone, he said quietly. She left the brochures. I'm not going to London. Sid, no. I pulled out the USB drive. Your father's company is involved in my story. Did you know? His silence was answer enough. Were you ever going to tell me? Or was London just a convenient escape plan? It's complicated, he said. Dad's not directly involved. That's not the point. I ran my hands through my hair in frustration. Your mother orchestrated this whole thing to protect the family name, didn't she? She's trying to protect you too, he said softly. Once the story breaks, I don't need protection. I need support. I need my husband to stand with me, not plot my exit strategy with his mother. Emery stood, reaching for me, but I stepped back. I'm staying at Kira's tonight, I said, heading to our bedroom to pack a bag. I need to think. Sydney, please. You know what hurts the most? I paused at the door. I actually believed you when you said you'd support me. Guess your mother was right about one thing. Sometimes sacrifice is necessary. I just never thought I'd have to sacrifice my marriage for the truth. 3 days at Kira's turned into a week. I threw myself into work, writing under the pseudonym Arya Stone to protect my investigation. The USB drive from Blaze proved invaluable, though I hated admitting it. Your mother-in-law's calling again, Kira said, holding up my phone. That's the 3rd time today. I kept typing. Let it ring. And Emery's texted 6 times. I can't deal with them right now. I gestured to my laptop screen. The story's almost ready. Look at these financial records. They've been siphoning millions through fake contracts. Sydney? Kira closed my laptop. You need to go home. I am home. To your actual home. To your husband. The doorbell rang before I could argue. Kira answered it, and to my surprise, Aurora walked in, carrying a familiar-looking camera. Hey, she said softly. Can we talk? I nodded, following her to Kira's balcony. The Mumbai sunset painted the sky orange, reminding me of countless evening teas with Anthea where I'd bit my tongue and played the perfect daughter-in-law. Mom's on the warpath, Aurora said, fiddling with her camera. She's convinced you're trying to destroy the family. I'm trying to do my job. I know. She raised the camera, snapping a quick photo of the sunset. That's why I brought you these. She pulled out an envelope stuffed with photographs. They showed various Craig Enterprises events, but focused on suspicious meetings between executives and the tech company I was investigating. You've been documenting everything, I whispered. Photography's not just a silly hobby. Aurora smiled sadly. Mom made me stop showing my work, but I never stopped taking pictures. Why are you helping me? Because you're doing what I couldn't, standing up to her. She handed me the envelope. But Sydney, be careful. Mom's not just angry, she's scared. Of what? Of you exposing what Dad's company has been doing? Of losing control? Of everything changing? Aurora took another photo, this time of me. She made me give up my dreams. Don't let her take yours too. My phone buzzed. Ren. Story's going to print tomorrow. Last chance to put your real name on it. I can't use my real name, I said, mostly to myself. It would destroy Emery. Maybe that's not your responsibility anymore, Aurora replied. Later that night, I finally went home. The apartment was dark, but Emery was awake, sitting in our kitchen. You're back, he said, voice rough. Just to get some clothes. The story comes out tomorrow, doesn't it? He stood up. Mom's lawyer called. They're prepared to sue if... Sue? I laughed bitterly. For reporting the truth? For defamation? For breaking confidentiality agreements you signed when we married? I never signed anything. Check the wedding paperwork again. He ran a hand through his hair. Mom thinks of everything. I started toward our bedroom, but he caught my arm. Wait, he said. I found an apartment in London. We could leave tonight. Start fresh. Run away, you mean? Let your father's company keep stealing? Let your mother keep controlling everyone's lives? I'm trying to save our marriage. By helping them bury the truth? I pulled away. That's not saving anything, Emery. That's surrender. A key turned in the lock. Only one other person had a key. Anthea walked in, perfectly composed despite the late hour. I thought I heard voices, she said. Sydney, dear, you're looking rather tired. London would do wonders for your complexion. Stop it, I snapped. Just stop. I know what you did with the wedding paperwork. I know you're trying to silence me. I'm trying to protect this family. Something you seem incapable of understanding. By forcing Aurora to give up photography? By making me choose between my marriage and my integrity? By ensuring we survive. Anthea's composure cracked. Do you think I enjoyed giving up dance? That I don't see Aurora's talent? But survival means sacrifice. No, I said, suddenly calm. Survival means growth. Change. Evolution. Everything you're fighting against. My phone buzzed one final time. Ren. Deadline in 1 hour. Your name or the pseudonym? I looked at Emery, then at Anthea. The story runs tomorrow, under my real name. Then you've made your choice, Anthea said coldly. Yes, I replied, heading to the bedroom to pack. I choose truth. I choose integrity. I choose to be someone Aurora can look up to, instead of another cautionary tale about dreams sacrificed on the altar of family reputation. Sydney, please, Emery called after me. We can figure this out. But as I packed my bags, I knew there was no figuring it out. Tomorrow, my name would be on a story that would shake Mumbai's corporate world. Tomorrow, I would stop being Anthea's project and start being myself. Tomorrow, everything would change. The morning my story broke, Mumbai seemed to hold its breath. I sat in the Chronicle's break room, watching my phone explode with notifications while Ren paced nearby. It's been shared 10,000 times already, she said, refreshing her screen. The tech company's stock is plummeting. My hands shook as I scrolled through messages. Kira had sent 17 texts. Aurora, 3 missed calls. Emery, nothing. Sydney? Blaze burst into the room, waving his phone. Have you seen the latest? Your father-in-law just resigned as CEO. Before I could respond, Ren's assistant rushed in. There's someone here to see you, Sydney. Says she's your mother-in-law's sister? Marley walked in, looking nothing like Anthea in her paint-splattered jeans and messy bun. Hey, kid. Got a minute? We found a quiet cafe across the street. Marley ordered espresso while I picked at a croissant. So, she said, you did it. You actually stood up to my sister. How bad is it? Bad enough that she's called a family emergency meeting. Good enough that 3 other whistleblowers have come forward. She leaned forward. But that's not why I'm here. She pulled out her phone, showing me an old newspaper clipping. A young Anthea in a dancer's pose, headlines praising her upcoming debut at the National Theater. What happened? I asked. Father died. Family business was failing. She gave up everything to marry into the right family, save everyone from ruin. Marley sighed. Sound familiar? My phone buzzed. A message from Aurora. Mom's losing it. Come to the house, please. I can't face them, I said. Can't? Or won't? Marley stood up. You wrote the truth, Sydney. Now live with it. The Craig mansion looked smaller somehow as I walked up the driveway. Aurora met me at the door, camera hanging around her neck. Thank God, she whispered. Mom's in the study with the lawyers. Emery just got back from London. London? He flew out right after your story broke, trying to salvage business relationships. The study door opened. Emery walked out, looking exhausted. He froze when he saw me. You're here, he said flatly. Aurora called. Did she tell you Dad's under investigation? That our accounts are frozen? That Mom... He stopped, running his hands through his hair. Why didn't you warn us? Would it have changed anything? We could have prepared. Instead, I spent 3 days watching everything fall apart. Everything was already falling apart. I stepped closer. Your father was stealing millions. Your mother was suffocating everyone's dreams. How long were we supposed to pretend everything was fine? The study door slammed open. Anthea emerged, lawyers trailing behind her. Well, she said, voice ice cold. If it isn't the journalist of the hour. Anthea, no. She held up a hand. You've said quite enough in print. Now you'll listen. She dismissed the lawyers with a wave. Do you know what your story has cost us? Not just money or reputation, but family. Aurora's engagement was called off this morning. The scandal, you see. Aurora gasped. I hadn't known she was engaged. Mom, she protested. That was my choice. I ended it because he tried to make me stop photography, just like you did. And you! Anthea turned on her daughter, sneaking around with that camera, helping her gather evidence. Evidence that was true, Aurora shot back. Truth? Anthea laughed bitterly. Truth is what we make it, dear. I learned that when I gave up dance, when I married your father, when I built this family from nothing. You didn't build it, I said quietly. You buried it. Buried yourself, buried Aurora's talent, tried to bury me. I tried to save you from yourself by forcing me to choose between my integrity and my marriage, by showing you what really matters. What matters? Emery's voice cut through the argument. How about this? He held up his phone, showing a news alert. Craig Enterprises fraud. More victims come forward. These are real people, Mom, he said. Real lives ruined because we all kept quiet. Because we chose family reputation over right and wrong. Anthea sank into a chair, suddenly looking older. Everything I did for this family. No, Aurora said, raising her camera. Everything you did because of your own regrets. The camera clicked, capturing Anthea's moment of vulnerability. For once, she didn't object. My phone buzzed again. Ren. Magazine wants your story, cover feature. Your journey from wife to whistleblower. I looked at my broken family. Anthea, lost in her fortress of control. Emery, torn between loyalty and truth. Aurora, finally finding her voice through her lens. The magazine can wait, I said, putting my phone away. We need to talk. Really talk. About everything. Why? Anthea asked, voice barely a whisper. Because that's what family does, I replied. Even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. Tell me about the dance recital, I said, setting a cup of tea in front of Anthea. We sat in her private sitting room, surrounded by old photographs I'd never noticed before. Young Anthea in a tutu. Anthea at the bar. Anthea soaring across a stage. It was to be my breakthrough performance, she said, touching one of the frames. Principal dancer, Romeo and Juliet. What happened that night? Father had a heart attack, hours before curtain call. Her fingers trembled around the teacup. The company director said I could postpone. But the hospital bills... Aurora sat cross-legged on the floor, documenting everything with her camera. Click, click, click. Put that thing away, Anthea snapped, but without her usual venom. No, Aurora replied quietly. This needs to be remembered. Marley arrived then, carrying a dusty box. Found it in the attic. Thought you might want these. She pulled out yellowed newspapers, playbills, dance shoes worn to shreds. Anthea's hands shook as she touched them. The night I met your father, she said to Emery, I was wearing these shoes. Last performance before. She swallowed hard. Before I became Mrs. Craig. Why didn't you ever tell us? Emery asked, sitting beside her. What was there to tell? I made my choice. Sacrifice for security. She looked at me. Sound familiar? Except you're trying to force that same choice on everyone else, I said. You're making Aurora hide her talent, trying to make me give up my career. I was protecting you. From what? Following our dreams? Being fulfilled? From disappointment. Anthea stood suddenly, photographs scattering. From having everything you love ripped away because of responsibility. From becoming... She gestured to herself. This. The room fell silent except for Aurora's camera. Click. Mom, Emery said softly. Is that why you pushed the London move? To stop Sydney before she got too invested? I saw the signs, Anthea whispered. The late nights, the passion in her eyes, the way she lit up talking about her work. Just like I used to. Marley pulled something else from the box. A letter, edges worn. Remember this? Your acceptance to the Paris Opera Ballet. You were accepted to Paris? Aurora lowered her camera. 2 weeks after Father died. Anthea took the letter, hands trembling. I burned the original. How did you... I saved a copy, Marley said. Thought someday you'd want to remember who you were, before you started forcing everyone else to forget who they are. My phone buzzed. Ren again. Magazine deadline tomorrow. Are you in? The magazine wants me to tell my story, I said. The whole story. To drag our name through the mud again? Anthea's walls started rising. No, I set my phone down. To tell the truth about sacrifice, about choices, about how trying to protect people from pain sometimes causes more damage than letting them risk getting hurt. They'll paint me as the villain. Only if you keep acting like one. I moved closer to her. But what if instead we tell a different story? About a brilliant dancer who gave up everything for her family, who got so scared of seeing history repeat itself that she forgot something important. What's that? That sometimes the biggest act of love is letting people choose their own path. Aurora raised her camera again, but this time Anthea didn't object. Click. I found your old dance videos, Aurora said. In the attic. You were magnificent. I was free, Anthea corrected, touching another photograph. Until I convinced myself that freedom was selfish. Emery picked up one of the playbills. You could teach, you know. The dance academy downtown is looking for instructors. Don't be ridiculous. At my age... Mom, he interrupted. Stop deciding things are impossible before trying them. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Blaze. More whistleblowers coming forward. Stories getting bigger. Need your insight. The magazine deadline is tomorrow, I said. But I won't write it without your blessing, Anthea. She stared at me for a long moment. Why ask my permission now? You didn't before. Because this isn't about exposing corruption anymore. It's about healing. And I can't help heal this family if I'm still trying to hurt you. Marley pulled one last item from the box, a DVD labeled Final Rehearsal, Romeo and Juliet. What do you say, sis? She asked. Ready to remember who you were? So you can finally see who everyone else is trying to be? Anthea looked around the room. At Aurora with her camera, at Emery holding the playbill, at me with my phone full of deadlines and stories. For the first time, she seemed to really see us. Yes, she whispered. Put on the video. As young Anthea danced across the screen, Aurora kept photographing, documenting not just the past on TV, but the present in the room. The walls coming down. The truth breaking through. Click, click, click. You're really going through with this? Kira asked, adjusting my blazer as we stood outside the Craig mansion. A high tea? After everything? Anthea's idea, I said, clutching my advance copy of the magazine. She wants to face things properly, whatever that means. The garden was set up exactly as Anthea liked. Bone china teacups, silver service, tiny sandwiches arranged just so. Mumbai's elite mingled awkwardly, clearly unsure whether to acknowledge the scandal or pretend everything was normal. Sydney. Blaze appeared, notepad in hand. Quite a turnout. Mind if I cover this for the Chronicle? Actually, I started, but Anthea's voice cut through the crowd. Mr. Phillips, welcome. She glided over, every inch the perfect hostess. Please do stay. I believe you'll find today's events newsworthy. I shot her a questioning look, but she was already moving away, greeting other guests. Aurora circulated with her camera, documenting everything. Where's Emery? I asked when she passed by. Getting Mom's surprise ready, she whispered, then disappeared into the crowd. The guests settled around elegant garden tables. I found myself seated between Kira and Marley, directly across from Anthea. The magazine burned in my lap. Friends, family. Anthea stood, tapping her teacup gently. Thank you for coming. I know recent events have caused quite a stir. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Many of you are wondering why I've gathered you here today. Some might expect damage control, or perhaps a public denouncement of recent revelations. Her eyes met mine. I held my breath. Instead, I want to share something else. She nodded toward the house. Music began to play, the Romeo and Juliet ballet score. Emery emerged carrying a projector screen. Behind him, Aurora set up a laptop. The video from the attic began playing, young Anthea dancing, full of passion and promise. 30 years ago, I made a choice. Anthea continued as her younger self twirled on screen. I chose security over passion, safety over art, and then I spent decades forcing others to make the same choice. Gasps rippled through the crowd. This wasn't the Anthea they knew. My daughter-in-law recently wrote an expose that shook our family to its core, but she also wrote another story. Anthea gestured to the magazine in my lap. Sydney, would you share it? Hands trembling, I opened to the cover story. The Price of Silence, How 3 Generations of Women Found Their Voice. Read it, Anthea said softly. Please. I cleared my throat. In a mansion in Mumbai, 3 women wage silent wars with their dreams. A dancer who gave up her passion to save her family. A photographer whose lens captures truth in shadows. A journalist seeking stories in the spaces between duty and desire. This is not a story about corruption, though corruption brought it to light. This is a story about the price we pay for silence and the power we find in breaking it. The crowd was silent. On screen, young Anthea continued to dance. My daughter Aurora, Anthea gestured to where Aurora stood with her camera, will be hosting her first photography exhibition next month. And she took a deep breath, will be teaching dance at the Mumbai Academy of Arts, sharing what I should never have hidden. Marley reached for her sister's hand. For once, Anthea didn't pull away. As for Sydney, Anthea turned to me. She has shown me that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is tell the truth, even when that truth hurts, especially when it hurts. Emery appeared at my side, squeezing my shoulder. The gesture said everything we hadn't been able to say to each other since the story broke. The magazine hits stands tomorrow, I said, standing to join Anthea, along with announcements of full restitution to everyone affected by the corporate fraud. Right, Emery? He nodded. Every penny. And the London position? Someone called out. Has been declined, Emery replied. My place is here, supporting my wife's career just as she supports mine. Blaze was scribbling furiously in his notepad. Anthea actually smiled at him. Write what you see, she said. All of it. No more hiding. The video ended with young Anthea's final bow. Present-day Anthea watched herself, tears in her eyes. I spent so long being afraid, she said, mostly to herself. Afraid of losing control, of seeing others make my mistakes, of facing my own regrets. And now? I asked. She straightened her shoulders, every inch the dancer she used to be. Now, I think it's time for a different kind of control. The kind that comes from letting go. Aurora raised her camera one last time, capturing the moment. Anthea and me, standing together. Emery beside us. Marley wiping away tears. The truth finally set free. Click. Well, Anthea picked up her teacup, a real smile playing at her lips. Shall we have some tea? I believe we have quite a lot to talk about. The tension broke. Conversations erupted. And somewhere in the garden of secrets and silence, something new began to bloom. 5 minutes until your first class, I said, watching Anthea adjust her dance shoes in the studio mirror. 2 weeks had passed since the high tea. The magazine story had gone viral, but this moment felt bigger somehow. Anthea returning to dance after 30 years. The leotard still fits, she said, smoothing invisible wrinkles, though I doubt I can still do a proper grand jeté. You don't have to be perfect, I reminded her, just authentic. Young girls in tutus started filing into the studio, whispering when they recognized us from the magazine cover. Aurora set up her tripod in the corner. She was documenting Anthea's journey back to dance for her exhibition. Mrs. Craig? A tiny ballerina tugged at Anthea's sleeve. Is it true you almost danced, Juliet? Before Anthea could answer, Emery burst into the studio. Sorry I'm late. Didn't want to miss this. You came? Anthea's voice wavered. Of course. He hugged her. When have I ever seen my mother dance? The piano started playing. Anthea took her position at the bar, back straight, chin lifted. For a moment, I saw the young dancer from the video, full of dreams and fire. First position, girls, she called out, her voice strong and clear. I slipped out, leaving Aurora to capture the moment. In the hallway, I found Marley hanging old performance photos. She's really doing it, Marley said, adjusting a frame. Never thought I'd see the day. A lot of things I never thought I'd see, I replied. Like you and her talking again. Time heals, so does truth. She handed me a photo. Speaking of which, how are things with Emery? I studied the picture. Young Anthea and Marley at a recital, both smiling. We're working on it. Counseling helps, so does not having to hide anymore. My phone buzzed. Ren. Follow-up story idea. Interview with Anthea about her dance academy? Already ahead of you, I texted back, attaching Aurora's photos from that morning. Music floated from the studio. Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake. I peeked in to see Anthea demonstrating a turn, not quite as graceful as her younger self, but somehow more powerful. Mom, that was beautiful, Aurora called out, checking her camera screen. It was sloppy, Anthea replied, but she was smiling. Again, girls. Watch the arms. Sydney. Emery appeared beside me. Can we talk? We found a quiet corner in the Academy's cafe. The same cafe where weeks ago I'd chosen truth over family loyalty. I've been thinking, he said, fiddling with his coffee cup. About London, about everything. Emery, let me finish. I was wrong. Not just about London, but about choosing silence over honesty. About not standing up to Mom sooner. We were all wrong in different ways, I said. Even me. I could have handled the story differently. No. He reached for my hand. You did exactly what needed to be done. Look at Mom now. She's teaching dance. Aurora's planning her exhibition. Dad's making amends. All because you were brave enough to break the silence. Through the window, we could see Anthea's class letting out. Girls streamed from the studio, chattering excitedly. Anthea emerged last, looking tired but alive in a way I'd never seen before. Sydney, she called out when she spotted us. Come here a moment. In the studio, she went to the piano and pulled out an old envelope. I found something you should have. Inside was a newspaper clipping, my first byline from college. How did you get this? Emery used to send me everything you wrote, even when I pretended not to care. She touched the yellowed paper gently. I recognized your talent. It scared me. Because it reminded you of yourself? Because I knew I couldn't control it, just like dance couldn't be controlled. She moved to the bar, assuming first position. But some things aren't meant to be controlled. They're meant to be set free. Aurora appeared with her camera. Mom, can I get a few more shots? The light's perfect. Actually, Anthea said, why don't you give the camera to Emery? Come join me at the bar. What? You have a dancer's build. I've always noticed. Anthea patted the bar. Let's see if photography isn't your only inherited talent. I took the camera from Aurora, watching through the lens as mother and daughter moved through basic positions. Their reflection in the mirror showed matching expressions: concentration, discovery, joy. Click. Sydney? Anthea called out. There's room for one more. Oh no, I laughed. I'm a writer, not a dancer. And I'm a dancer who became a housewife who became a teacher. She held out her hand. Sometimes the best stories are the ones that surprise us. Emery took the camera from me, grinning. Go on, I want to document this. So there we were, journalist, photographer, and reformed control freak, learning basic ballet positions while Emery captured it all on film. And somehow, in that sunlit studio, we found a new kind of family rhythm. Click, click, click. Ready? Aurora adjusted the lighting one last time, her exhibition opening just minutes away. The gallery walls showcased her journey. Candid shots of Anthea teaching dance, moments from my investigation, the high tea revelation. But the centerpiece was different. A massive portrait of 3 generations of Craig women taken in the dance studio. The prodigal daughter returns. Blaze walked in, press badge hanging from his neck. Nice turnout. You're actually invited this time, I teased. No need for the badge. Old habits. He gestured to the crowd gathering outside. Half of Mumbai's media is here. You've started quite a revolution, Sydney. Before I could respond, Kira rushed over. They're here. Anthea entered first, wearing a dress that echoed her old ballet costumes. Behind her, Emery helped Marley carry in a covered frame. Last addition to the exhibition, Aurora explained, taking the frame. Mom's idea. The gallery doors opened. People flooded in, drawn immediately to the wall-sized photos. I heard gasps as they recognized faces, pieced together the story told through Aurora's lens. Sydney? Anthea touched my arm. Come with me? She led me to a quiet corner where the covered frame waited. Before Aurora unveils this, I want you to see it first. She pulled away the cloth. There, beautifully framed, was my original article about the corporate fraud, side by side with the magazine cover story. Between them, a handwritten note. To my daughter-in-law, who taught me that the truth doesn't break families. Secrets do. Anthea. My voice caught. I was wrong about so many things, she said. But I was most wrong about you. Everyone, Aurora called out. If I could have your attention, the crowd gathered. I noticed familiar faces. Ren from the Chronicle, my sources from the investigation, even some of Anthea's ballet students. This exhibition is called Breaking Silence, Aurora began. It's about truth, family, and the courage to be who you really are. She unveiled the final piece. And it's dedicated to two women who showed me that courage firsthand. Applause filled the gallery. Emery appeared beside me, slipping his hand into mine. There's something else, he whispered. Watch, Mom. Anthea moved to the center of the room, her dancer's grace evident in every step. When my daughter-in-law first exposed our family's secrets, I thought she was destroying us. Instead, she forced us to rebuild something better. She gestured to the photos. These images tell a story of transformation. But transformation isn't just about changing. It's about returning to who you were always meant to be. The gallery lights dimmed. A spotlight appeared. Music began to play. Romeo and Juliet. Oh my God, I whispered, recognizing the piece from her old rehearsal video. Anthea took position. The crowd fell silent as she began to dance. Not the complex choreography of her youth, but something simpler, more powerful. A dance of redemption. Aurora raised her camera. Click. When the music ended, there wasn't a dry eye in the gallery. Anthea held her final pose, tears streaming down her face. Brava, Marley called out, starting a wave of applause. I have an announcement, Anthea said once the clapping subsided. The Academy is expanding. We're adding a photography studio and a journalism workshop. Because art isn't just about dance, it's about every voice that needs to be heard. She turned to me. Sydney, I hope you'll teach some classes. Show others how to tell their truth. Only if you'll teach me more ballet, I replied, making her laugh. Deal. The evening continued, but the real story was in the quiet moments. Aurora showing her students around the exhibition. Emery proudly explaining his mother's dance to guests. Marley and Anthea planning the Academy's expansion. Quite a change from family dinners with perfect table settings, Kira commented, handing me a champagne flute. Everything's changed, I said, watching Anthea demonstrate a dance position to an entranced group of journalists. Not everything. Emery joined us. Some things just got stronger. My phone buzzed. Ren again. But this time I didn't check it. Whatever story was breaking could wait. The real story was here, in this room, in these moments of truth and reconciliation. Sydney, Aurora called. Family photo. I joined them under the centerpiece portrait. Journalist, dancer, photographer, all of us exactly who we were meant to be. No more perfect table settings or polite silences. Just truth, in all its messy, beautiful glory. Everyone ready? Blaze held up Aurora's camera. Say truth. We laughed, the sound echoing through the gallery like music, like freedom, like family. Click. The camera captured us mid-laugh, imperfect and real. And in that moment, I realized something. Sometimes the happiest endings aren't endings at all. They're beginnings, disguised as revelations. They're truths, waiting to be told. They're stories, waiting to be lived.
The call came during my morning coffee ritual at Riverside Cafe, the same ritual Aunt Margaret had mocked countless times as wasting money better spent on a real career. My hands trembled as I listened to my cousin Camila's voice crack through the speaker. "Mia, it's bad. The doctors say she needs specialized treatment and insurance won't cover most of it. I'm Mia, a graphic artist in a small town where creativity is often mistaken for laziness, especially by my Aunt Margaret." The irony of this call wasn't lost on me. Just last week, at my cousin's engagement party, Aunt Margaret had made sure everyone heard her opinions about my life choices. "Look at her, sitting there with her little drawings," she'd announced to the room, wine glass swaying dangerously in her hand. "June, I don't understand how you let her waste her potential like this. A proper job, that's what she needs." My mother had simply looked away, her silence more cutting than any words could be. "Mia, are you still there?" Camila's voice pulled me back to the present. "Yeah, sorry. How much does she need?" The number Camilla quoted made my coffee go cold in my throat. That was more than I made in 6 months. "We're having a family meeting tonight," Camilla continued. "Maybe if we all pitch in—" "I'll be there," I said, already knowing how it would go. The meeting was exactly as I'd expected. Chaos wrapped in forced politeness at my mother's house. Aunt Margaret sat in her usual armchair, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her, but her tongue hadn't lost its edge. "Well, if some people had chosen more reliable professions," she said, eyeing me pointedly, "we might have more resources as a family." My friend Rose, who'd come for moral support, squeezed my hand under the table. She knew how much those barbs hurt, even after all these years. "Margaret," my mother finally spoke up, "this isn't helping." "No, what's not helping is having a niece who thinks doodling is a career," Margaret's voice rose. "Did you know she turned down that accounting position I arranged? And now look, I'm updating my will, and guess who won't be in it?" The room fell silent. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. "I need some air." Outside, Rose followed me to the porch swing. "You okay?" "You know what's funny?" I said, watching my breath cloud in the cold air. "My latest commission just sold for $5,000, but in there, I'm still just the family disappointment." "Mia," Rose started, but my phone buzzed. A text from Micah, my artist friend. "Got that gallery showing you wanted. Call me." I should have felt excited, but all I could think about was Aunt Margaret's pale face and the stack of medical bills on the coffee table inside. "She's really sick, isn't she?" I asked Rose. "Stage 3. They caught it late because she was too proud to get checked earlier." Pride. That was Aunt Margaret's everything. The same pride that made her refuse to acknowledge my art in the local paper, or the mural I painted for the children's hospital. The door opened, and Camila stepped out, her eyes red. "The lawyer's here with the will papers. She wants to make it official tonight." "Of course she does," I muttered. Back inside, Margaret's lawyer, Serena, was laying out documents. My aunt's hand shook as she signed, but her voice was steady as she announced, "I want it clear that my estate will be divided between Camila and June. Mia has chosen her path, and it's not one I will support." I watched her sign away my existence on paper, and something shifted inside me. Not pain, I was used to that, but something else. A plan started forming, one that would either break me financially or prove something I'd been trying to show my aunt for years. As everyone filed out later, I overheard Margaret talking to my mother. "The treatments start next week. I don't know how we'll manage, but I won't accept charity. I have my dignity." I smiled to myself, pulling out my phone to check my bank balance. Dignity was about to meet its match in karma, and I was going to be the one dealing the cards. "Everything okay?" Rose asked, catching my expression. "Yeah," I said, watching Aunt Margaret being helped to her car. "I just need to make some calls tomorrow, about that inheritance she's so proud of. I think it's time to show her what her useless niece can really do." I didn't know then that my decision that night would set off a chain of events that would either heal our family or shatter it completely. But standing there, watching Margaret's car disappear into the darkness, I knew one thing for certain. Sometimes the best revenge isn't served cold. Sometimes it's served with an anonymous check and a side of karmic justice. The next morning, I sat in my tiny home office, staring at my laptop screen. My savings account balance glared back at me, the result of 3 years of careful planning for my own design studio. My phone buzzed with a text from Rose. "Have you thought this through? It's a lot of money." I called her instead of texting back. "I've run the numbers. If I take on extra freelance work and dip into my studio fund, I can make it work." "Mia, that's your dream we're talking about. And for what? Someone who's never believed in you?" Before I could answer, another call came in. Camila. "Hold on, Rose." "Mia?" Camila's voice was thick with tears. "The hospital called. They need the first payment by Friday, or they'll have to postpone her treatment." My stomach clenched. "How much?" 20,000. Mom's trying to get a loan, but with her credit. She trailed off. "I'll call you back," I said, switching back to Rose. "Still there?" "You're going to do it, aren't you?" I pulled up my banking app. "You should have seen her face last night, Rose. All that pride, and now she can't even afford to save her own life. And you think secretly paying for her treatment will what? Make her finally appreciate you?" "No," I said, starting the transfer process. "But maybe it'll teach her something about judging people's worth." After hanging up, I walked to my local coffee shop where Micah was waiting. His eyes widened as I approached. "You look like you haven't slept." "Thanks for the compliment," I said, sliding into the booth. "Tell me about the gallery showing." 3 months from now. Prime spot, great exposure, but..." He studied my face. "Something's wrong." I stirred my coffee absently. "I might have to pass." "Pass? Mia, this is your big break. The kind of opportunity that..." "I know." Several heads turned our way and I lowered my voice. "I know, but something came up." "Does this have something to do with your aunt?" "Camila told me about the will." Before I could respond, my phone lit up with a notification. The transfer had gone through. $20,000, sent anonymously through my lawyer to the hospital's billing department. "Mia?" Micah waved his hand in front of my face. "You're scaring me." "I'm fine. Just taking care of something important." That evening, I was working on a commission when Camilla called again. "It's crazy," she said. "Someone paid for Aunt Margaret's first round of treatment. Anonymous donation." I forced my voice to stay neutral. "Really? That's unexpected?" "She's furious. Keeps saying she doesn't want charity. Mom's trying to convince her to accept it, but you know how she is." I did know. I also knew exactly what would happen next. Sure enough, the family meeting that night was explosive. I arrived to find Aunt Margaret holding court in her usual spot, face flushed with anger. "It's humiliating," she declared. "Some stranger thinking they can just..." "Margaret," my mother interrupted. "This is a blessing. Why can't you just accept it?" "Because I have my pride, unlike some people who probably live off handouts." Her eyes found me. "Speaking of which, Mia, how's the art business?" I met her gaze steadily. "Just finished a corporate project, but you probably wouldn't be interested." "See?" She turned to my mother. "That attitude. That's why she's not in the will. No respect for real work." Rose, who'd arrived late, caught my eye from across the room. She could probably see the irony written all over my face. Later, as I helped clean up, Camilla cornered me in the kitchen. "There's something different about you tonight. Usually, Aunt Margaret's comments get to you more." I shrugged, loading dishes into the dishwasher. "Maybe I'm growing up. Or maybe you know something about that mysterious donation." I dropped a fork, the clatter loud in the sudden silence. "What makes you say that?" "Just... you seem calm. Too calm." Before she could press further, Rose appeared in the doorway. "Mia, your phone's been buzzing. It's Micah about the gallery." I escaped to the porch, grateful for the rescue. But as I listened to Micah detail the opportunity I was about to give up, I heard Aunt Margaret's voice drift through the open window. "I've hired someone," she was saying. "A private investigator. I want to know who's behind this." This charity. No one makes a fool of Margaret Ross. I ended the call with Micah and leaned against the porch railing, watching the stars. My bank account was significantly lighter, my dream studio was slipping away, and now my aunt was actively hunting for my identity. But somehow, watching her rage against anonymous kindness felt like its own kind of victory. Rose joined me outside. "You know this is going to get complicated, right?" I nodded, thinking of the next payment I'd need to make in 2 weeks. Sometimes the most expensive revenge is the one that looks like kindness. 2 weeks into my secret mission, I found myself pulling double shifts at my desk, coffee cups multiplying around my workspace like mushrooms. A new corporate client had demanded 3 complete revisions of their logo, each paying less than the last. But I needed every penny. My phone lit up with a message from Micah. "Coffee? You've been MIA for days." I met him at our usual spot, trying not to wince at the $5 I spent on a latte, money that should have gone to Aunt Margaret's next treatment payment. "You look terrible," he said, sliding into the seat across from me, charming as always. "I'm serious. You're working yourself to death, and you still haven't given me a straight answer about the gallery showing." I stared into my coffee. "I can't commit right now, the entry fee alone." "Since when do you worry about money? Your business was doing great." Before I could answer, Camila walked in. She spotted us and made her way over, uninvited. "Guess what?" she said, pulling up a chair. "The anonymous donor struck again. Another payment cleared yesterday." My hands tightened around my cup. "How's Aunt Margaret taking it?" "Oh, she's livid. That investigator she hired? He's been asking questions all over town. But get this, the money's being routed through some complicated trust fund setup. He can't trace it." I tried to hide my smile. My lawyer had earned her fee with that arrangement. "Speaking of money," Camila continued, "Mom says you turned down 3 family dinner invitations this week. Are you avoiding us?" "Just busy with work," I said, pulling out my phone as another client email arrived. "Speaking of which..." "Always running away," she muttered. "Just like Aunt Margaret says." I froze halfway out of my seat. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing, just... She might have a point about responsibility. While someone's helping us with the medical bills, the rest of us are still trying to support her. Where are you in all this?" Micah jumped in before I could respond. "Hey, Mia's working harder than anyone I know." "Right, on her little drawings." I left without answering, my coffee barely touched. Outside, Micah caught up with me. "Don't let them get to you," he said. "They don't understand what you do." "It's fine. I need to get back to work anyway." That evening, I was knee-deep in design work when Rose called. "Emergency family meeting at your mom's. Aunt Margaret's investigator found something." My heart stopped. "What kind of something?" "Don't know, but she sounds excited. You coming?" I arrived to find everyone already gathered. Aunt Margaret sat in her usual chair, looking smug despite her illness-worn features. A man in a crisp suit stood beside her, the investigator, I assumed. "Ah, Mia," Aunt Margaret said. "So nice of you to grace us with your presence. Mr. Ortiz here has some interesting information about our mysterious benefactor." The investigator cleared his throat. "The funds are coming from a local source, someone with considerable savings, recently depleted. We've narrowed it down to..." My phone rang, cutting him off. The client with the logo revisions. I stepped into the kitchen to take the call. "What do you mean you're going with another designer?" I fought to keep my voice down. "We had a contract." When I returned to the living room, everyone was staring at me. "Problem?" Aunt Margaret asked sweetly. "Just work stuff. What did I miss?" Mr. Ortiz was explaining how our donor seems to be struggling financially themselves, taking on extra work, making suspicious transfers. Her eyes narrowed. "Rather like someone else we know." I met her gaze steadily. "Sounds like they're working hard, unlike some people who just judge others' careers." The room went silent. Even the investigator looked uncomfortable. "How dare you?" Aunt Margaret started to rise, but weakness forced her back down. "After everything? After everything what? After years of belittling me? After cutting me out of your will? Yeah, I dare." I grabbed my bag and headed for the door. Behind me, I heard my mother call my name, but I kept walking. Outside, I leaned against my car, breathing hard. My phone buzzed, another client cancellation. At this rate, I'd have to dip even deeper into my studio fund for the next payment. Rose followed me out. That was quite a show. Did you see her face? So desperate to catch someone helping her that she can't even see what's right in front of her. Mia. Rose hesitated. The investigator might be closer than you think. Maybe it's time to stop. I shook my head, watching through the window as Aunt Margaret gesticulated angrily at the investigator. No, she needs to learn. Besides, I'm in too deep now. And your studio? Your dreams? I pulled out my phone, looking at my dwindling bank balance. Sometimes revenge costs more than money. As if on cue, a text from Camila appeared. The investigator's requesting bank records next. Aunt Margaret's determined to expose whoever it is. I smiled grimly. Let her try, I whispered, starting my car. Let her try. The investigator, Hamza, cornered me outside my favorite coffee shop on a Tuesday morning. I'd just finished my third consecutive all-nighter, trying to make up for lost clients with new commissions. Ms. Mia, he said, appearing beside me as I fumbled for my keys. Do you have a moment? I studied his carefully neutral expression. Depends. Are you here as Aunt Margaret's bloodhound or as a paying client? I find it interesting, he continued, as if I hadn't spoken, that your aunt's medical bills are being paid by someone whose financial patterns mirror yours exactly. Really? Maybe they're just another hardworking person being judged by people who don't understand their choices. Or maybe they're draining their life savings for someone who doesn't appreciate it. I felt the color drain from my face. Before I could respond, Micah's voice cut through the tension. Mia, there you are. He jogged up, placing himself between me and Hamza. We're late for that meeting. Hamza handed me his card. When you're ready to talk, call me. Inside my car, Micah turned to me. Want to tell me what's going on? And don't say nothing. You look like you've seen a ghost. I need coffee, I muttered, starting the engine. At a different cafe across town, I finally told him everything. The payments, the depleted savings, the gallery showing I'd had to pass up. Are you insane? He exploded, causing several heads to turn. That's your entire studio fund. Lower your voice, I hissed. No, I won't. Do you know how long you've worked for that dream? And you're throwing it away on someone who... Who what? Who's dying? Who needs help? Who never gave a damn about your dreams? My phone buzzed. Camila again. Aunt Margaret's in the hospital. Bad reaction to the treatment. She's asking for everyone. At the hospital, I found my mother in the waiting room, looking exhausted. She's stabilized, she said before I could ask. But she's different. Scared, I think. Inside the room, Aunt Margaret looked small against the white sheets, her eyes fixed on me as I entered. Come to see the show? Her voice was weak, but still carried that familiar edge. Your cousin tells me you've been too busy with work to visit lately. Finally finding a real job? Margaret, my mother warned. No, let her speak, I said, moving closer to the bed. Tell me, Aunt Margaret, what exactly is a real job to you? One that makes money? Because I make plenty. One that helps people? My designs are in children's hospitals. One that doesn't rely on handouts, she snapped, then started coughing. I handed her a water cup, my hand shaking. Like anonymous donations? Her eyes narrowed. Mr. Ortiz is close to finding out who's behind those. Then we'll see who's really... The monitor beside her bed started beeping rapidly. A nurse rushed in, ushering us out. In the hallway, I ran into Hamza again. Persistent, aren't you? I said. I'm good at my job, just like you're good at yours. He paused. The next payment is due tomorrow. Is that a question? An observation, along with the fact that you've been taking on small jobs at half your usual rate, desperate for quick cash, perhaps. Before I could respond, Rose appeared, pulling me aside. Your mother's looking for you. Also, Micah called. Said something about a solution for the studio fund? I shook my head. Tell him to drop it. Mia, you can't keep doing this. Look at yourself. When's the last time you slept? I'm fine. No, you're not. And neither is your business. Camila mentioned you lost the Thompson account. I leaned against the wall, suddenly dizzy. They wanted someone more corporate. You mean someone who wasn't working through the night on rush jobs to make quick cash? The hospital lights seemed too bright, the corridor too narrow. I should check on Aunt Margaret. She's sleeping, my mother said, joining us. The nurse gave her something. But Mia, honey, you look terrible. When's the last time you ate? I waved off her concern, but as I turned to leave, the corridor tilted. Rose caught my arm. That's it, she said. I'm taking you home. In my apartment, I finally checked my bank balance. The next payment would leave me with barely enough for rent. My phone lit up with a text from Hamza. Your aunt's determination to find her benefactor is affecting her health. Perhaps it's time to end this game. I stared at the message until the screen went dark. On my desk, the gallery invitation sat unopened, mocking me with its promises of the future I was sacrificing. Another text arrived, this time from Micah. Found an investor for your studio. Real opportunity. Don't throw away your dreams for someone else's pride. I looked at my reflection in the window. Pale, exhausted, running on coffee and determination. Maybe they were right. Maybe it was time to stop. Then my phone rang again. Camila's number. Mia? She's asking for you, and she's got that investigator with her. I found Aunt Margaret sitting up in her hospital bed, looking more alert than she had in days. Hamza stood by the window, his expression unreadable. Camila hovered near the door, wringing her hands. Close the door, Aunt Margaret commanded. I stepped inside, letting it click shut behind me. You wanted to see me? Mr. Ortiz has been sharing some fascinating information. She gestured to a chair. Sit. I prefer to stand. Always defiant, she muttered. Mr. Ortiz, please tell my niece what you've discovered. Hamza cleared his throat. The anonymous donations are coming from someone who's recently liquidated several investments. Someone who's been taking on numerous small design projects at reduced rates. Someone who... If you have something to say, I interrupted, say it directly. Aunt Margaret's monitor beeped steadily in the silence that followed. Finally, she spoke. Are you behind these donations? Would it matter if I was? Answer the question. Like you answered my calls when I won that national design competition, or when I landed my first major client. My voice shook. Or maybe like you answered when I begged you to look at my portfolio before deciding I was worthless. Camilla gasped softly from her corner. Aunt Margaret's face flushed. So it is you, she said. You're the one making me look like a charity case. The door opened and Rose burst in. Mia, don't... No, I cut her off. Let's have this out. I turned back to Aunt Margaret. You want to know the truth? Yes, I'm the one paying your medical bills. I'm the one working myself to exhaustion, taking every job I can find. I'm the one who gave up my dream of opening my own studio so you could have the best treatment available. The monitor's beeping increased. Hamza stepped forward, concerned. Why? Aunt Margaret whispered. To humiliate me? Because despite everything, you're family. And because maybe, just maybe, it would show you that the niece you dismissed as worthless could do something meaningful. A nurse appeared in the doorway. Is everything okay in here? Her heart rate is elevated. We're fine, Aunt Margaret snapped. Leave us. The nurse hesitated, then withdrew. Camila took her place by the door, looking ready to call for help if needed. So, Aunt Margaret said, her voice dangerously quiet, you thought you'd teach me a lesson? Play God with my life? No, Do you know what this means? She continued. Every treatment, every moment of hope was built on lies, on your need to prove something. That's not fair, Rose interjected. Mia has sacrificed everything to help you. Help me? Aunt Margaret laughed bitterly. She's helped herself to a grand gesture, nothing more. Well, I won't accept another penny. I'd rather die with dignity than live on her charity. The room spun slightly. I gripped the back of a chair to steady myself. Margaret, Hamza spoke up, perhaps we should consider... Consider what? That my worthless niece has been playing puppet master? That she's probably laughing at me behind my back? I never laughed, I said quietly. I cried. Every time I had to turn down an opportunity. Every time I stayed up all night working on cheap projects to make the payments. Every time I heard you mock my career while I was literally keeping you alive. Silence fell. Even the monitor seemed quieter. Get out, Aunt Margaret finally said. All of you, except Mr. Ortiz. In the hallway, Camila caught my arm. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have kept it secret? She looked away. I don't know. My phone buzzed. Micah again. Investor meeting tomorrow. Last chance. Don't throw this away. Rose read the message over my shoulder. Take it. You've done enough. Have I? I watched through the window as Aunt Margaret gestured angrily at Hamza. Look at her. Still so angry, so sure she's right. That's her problem, not yours, Rose said. You've proved your point. Have I? I repeated. Because it feels like I've just proved hers, that I'm exactly what she always said, someone who makes the wrong choices. Camila touched my shoulder. She's asking for Mom, and she's telling Hamza to stop the investigation. Why? She says there's no point now. The damage is done. I slumped against the wall, exhaustion finally hitting me full force. My phone buzzed with another message, this time from my bank. Account alert, balance below minimum. Rose took my phone gently. Come on, you need rest. As they led me away, I heard Aunt Margaret's voice through the door, talking to my mother who had just arrived. Did you know? Did you know your daughter was destroying herself to save me? I didn't stay to hear the answer. Sometimes I was learning, revenge doesn't taste like victory at all. Sometimes it just tastes like tears and cold coffee and dreams turning to dust. 3 days after the revelation, I sat across from Micah and his investor contact in a sleek downtown cafe. My hands wrapped around a coffee cup I couldn't afford, trying to hide their trembling. The space is perfect, Micah was saying. Corner location, great light, reasonable rent. The investor, a woman named Diana, nodded. And your portfolio is impressive. But I have concerns about your recent work history. These quick, low-budget projects. My phone lit up with Camila's name. I declined the call. Those were temporary, I started to explain, but my phone buzzed again. This time, a text. She's asking for you. It's important. I'm sorry, I said, standing. Family emergency. Diana's sympathetic smile didn't quite hide her disappointment. Perhaps we should reschedule when things are more settled. Outside, Micah caught up with me. That was your chance, Mia. Your last chance. I know. I fumbled with my car keys. But she's asking for me. She's always asking for something. When does anyone ask what you need? I didn't answer, just drove to the hospital in silence. Outside Aunt Margaret's room, I found my mother and Camila waiting. She's with her lawyer, my mother said. Serena's been here for an hour. Through the window, I could see Aunt Margaret signing papers, her hand shaking but determined. Finally, the door opened. Serena emerged, nodding to me. She's ready to see you. Inside, Aunt Margaret looked different. The anger that had fueled her for days seemed to have drained away, leaving something else in its place. Sit, she said, patting the bed beside her. When I hesitated, she added, please. I perched on the edge of the mattress. If this is about the payments, This is about the will. She held up a hand when I tried to interrupt. No, let me finish. Hamza showed me everything. The hours you've been working, the opportunities you've turned down, the studio fund you emptied. I didn't do it for the will. I know, that's what makes it worse. She picked at her blanket. You did it because you're better than me, better than I ever gave you credit for. The door opened and Rose slipped in, followed by Micah. They must have seen my car in the parking lot. I spoke with Diana, Micah said. She might reconsider if... Who's Diana? Aunt Margaret asked. No one, I said quickly, but Micah pressed on. An investor. She was going to fund Mia's studio. The dream you called worthless. Micah, don't, I pleaded. No, he's right, Aunt Margaret said. I should hear this. Tell me about the studio. So I did. The words poured out. The business plan I'd spent years developing, the clients I'd lined up, the space I'd found. With each detail, her expression grew more pained. And you gave all this up? For me? The treatments were more important. She reached for the papers Serena had left. I've changed my will again, but more importantly, I've made some arrangements. Serena helped me access some investments I'd forgotten about. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm paying you back. Every penny you spent on my treatments, plus enough to lease that studio space for a year. The room swam before my eyes. Rose grabbed my arm to steady me. I don't want your money, I said. Too bad. Consider it my first investment in your business. She smiled weakly. Unless you think I'm not qualified to judge a real career? A laugh bubbled up, half sob. Using my own words against me? Learning from the best. She patted my hand. I was wrong about you, Mia. Wrong about everything. Micah stepped forward. I'll call Diana. Wait, I said. Aunt Margaret, are you sure? The treatments are working. Thanks to you, I got them in time. Now it's your turn. She looked around the room, at Rose and Micah hovering protectively, at my mother and Camila who had quietly entered. I've spent years tearing you down. Let me help build something for once. My phone buzzed. Diana's number. Aunt Margaret nodded at it. Answer. Put it on speaker. With shaking hands, I did. Diana's voice filled the room. Mia, I've been thinking about your proposal. So have I, Aunt Margaret cut in smoothly. And I'd like to discuss co-investing in my niece's studio. I believe you'll find her recent work history shows exactly the kind of dedication and character you're looking for. I stared at her as she handled the call with the same authority she'd always wielded, but this time using it to build me up instead of tear me down. After the call ended, she handed me the will papers. Read them later. For now, don't you have a studio to plan? I don't know what to say. Say you'll prove me right this time instead of proving me wrong. She squeezed my hand. And Mia, thank you. Not for the money, but for showing me what real strength looks like. For the first time in months, I felt myself smile. Really smile. Sometimes it turns out revenge doesn't end in victory or defeat. Sometimes it ends in something that looks surprisingly like healing. 1 month later, I stood in an empty storefront, sunlight streaming through the large windows. Paint samples covered one wall, and architectural plans lay spread across a folding table. The exposed brick stays, Aunt Margaret declared from her wheelchair. She'd insisted on coming to the space inspection, despite having just finished another round of treatment. I thought you said I had creative control, I teased. Creative, yes. Foolish, no. She wheeled herself closer to the windows. These need cleaning, but the light is perfect for your work. The door chimed as Micah entered, carrying coffee for everyone. Diana just called. The paperwork's ready to sign tomorrow. Speaking of paperwork, Aunt Margaret said, pulling an envelope from her bag. There's something we need to discuss. I took the envelope, recognizing Serena's law firm logo. More changes to the will? No, something else. She nodded toward the papers. Read it. Inside was a partnership agreement. My hands started shaking as I read the terms. You want to be a formal partner in the studio? Silent partner, she corrected. With one condition. Here we go, I muttered, but I was smiling. The studio needs a name. I propose Legacy Design Studios. Micah nearly choked on his coffee. That's actually perfect. Because you're leaving me your legacy? I asked. Because you taught me what legacy really means. She wheeled closer. It's not about money or status, it's about impact. The mark we leave on others' lives. The door chimed again. Rose entered with Camila and my mother carrying lunch. How's it going? Rose asked, setting down the bags. Aunt Margaret's trying to make me cry again, I said, waving the partnership agreement. Good tears this time, I hope, my mother said, starting to unpack the food. The best kind. I turned back to Aunt Margaret. But are you sure about this? Partnership is a big commitment. So was paying for my treatment. She took a sandwich from Camila. Besides, someone needs to keep you from painting everything in those awful modern colors. I thought you didn't know anything about art, I challenged. I'm learning. Speaking of which... She pulled out her phone, showing me a local news article. Isn't this your mural they're featuring at the children's hospital? The others gathered around to look. It was the piece I'd done last year, the one she'd dismissed as doodling. They want to commission more, I admitted. I've been meaning to tell you. Tell me what? They want a piece for the oncology ward. I thought, maybe you could help me design it? The room went quiet. Aunt Margaret's eyes glistened. I'd like that, she said softly. Camila cleared her throat. Before everyone gets too emotional, there's something else. She handed me another envelope. From Hamza. The investigator? What does he want now? Inside was a simple note. Sometimes the best investigations reveal more than just facts. They reveal truth. Thank you for teaching me that. He's recommended me to 3 corporate clients, I explained to the questioning looks. Said they needed someone who understands the value of investment in people. Smart man, Aunt Margaret commented. Now about these color schemes. Oh no, Rose laughed. Here we go again. We spent the next hour arguing good-naturedly about design choices, sharing lunch, and planning the future. My mother watched it all with tears in her eyes. What? I asked her during a quiet moment. I just never thought I'd see this. She gestured between me and Aunt Margaret. You two, building something together. Neither did I, Aunt Margaret admitted. But sometimes our biggest mistakes lead to our best opportunities. She wheeled over to the windows again, looking out at the street. You know, I spent years thinking I knew what success looked like. I was wrong. Success isn't in the money or the status. It's in the legacy, I suggested. It's in the love, she corrected. Even when that love comes disguised as anonymous donations and midnight design work. Micah raised his coffee cup. To Legacy Design Studios? To family, Aunt Margaret countered. The kind you're born with and the kind you build. As everyone echoed the toast, I looked around the sun-filled space that would soon become my studio. Our studio. At Rose and Micah, who'd stood by me through everything. At Camila, who was finally seeing me as an equal. At my mother, who was learning to stand up for me. And at Aunt Margaret, who'd turned from my biggest critic to my strongest advocate. One more thing, Aunt Margaret said, pulling out another paper. The hospital board meeting is next week. They want to discuss the oncology ward mural. I took the liberty of scheduling us both to present the concept. Us both? Unless you don't want your silent partner's input? I hugged her, careful of the IV bruises on her arms. I think we're way past silent. She hugged me back, whispering, Thank you for not giving up on me. Sometimes, I realized, the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes, it's the courage to keep loving, keep giving, keep believing in someone until they learn to believe in you, too. The morning of Legacy Design Studios' opening, I found Aunt Margaret already waiting outside, her wheelchair parked in front of the newly installed sign. Her hair was growing back, thin but determined, like spring grass after a hard winter. You're early, I said, unlocking the door. Couldn't sleep. Too busy thinking about color schemes. Inside, everything was ready. My designs lined the walls, including prints of the Children's Hospital murals. The oncology ward piece held center stage, a collaboration between aunt and niece that had brought tears to the hospital board's eyes. Remember when you said I was wasting my potential? I asked, adjusting a frame. I remember being an idiot. She wheeled over to the reception desk, running her hand along the smooth wood. But look what came from that idiocy. The bell chimed as Diana entered. Everything ready for the clients? First meetings start in an hour, I confirmed. Aunt Margaret insisted on being here for all of them. Quality control, Aunt Margaret said primly. Diana smiled. From what I've seen of your joint work, that's not a bad thing. More people started arriving. Rose and Micah with coffee and pastries. Camila with an armful of fresh flowers. My mother carrying a package wrapped in silver paper. What's this? I asked as she handed it to me. Open it. Inside was a framed newspaper article about the studio opening, focusing on the unique partnership between aunt and niece. The headline read, Local Artist and Business Icon Unite, a story of redemption and innovation. Turn it over, Aunt Margaret instructed. On the back was a handwritten note. To my niece, who taught me that true art isn't just what we create on canvas, but what we build in each other's hearts. Love, Aunt Margaret. Don't you dare cry, she warned. Your first clients will be here soon. The door chimed again. Hamza entered, followed by Serena. Just wanted to wish you luck, he said. Though from what I've investigated about your upcoming projects, you won't need it. Still keeping tabs on us? I teased. Professional habit, he smiled. Plus, someone needs to document this remarkable transformation. Serena stepped forward with a folder. Speaking of documentation, the final partnership papers need signing. As Aunt Margaret and I signed, I noticed her hands were steady, stronger than they'd been in months. The doctors say the treatments are working better than expected, she said, catching my look. Turns out spite is a powerful motivator for recovery. I have to stick around to make sure you don't paint everything in neon colors. The first clients began arriving, a mix of corporate executives and nonprofit directors, all drawn by the studio's unique story and distinctive style. I watched as Aunt Margaret charmed them effortlessly, her business acumen complementing my creative presentations perfectly. During a brief break, Rose pulled me aside. Look at her. I've never seen her so alive. Me neither. It's like she's finally found her purpose. Or maybe, Micah joined us, you both have. The day flew by in a blur of meetings, celebrations, and possibilities. As evening approached, most of the guests had left, leaving just family and close friends. I have something to show you, I told Aunt Margaret, leading her to a covered wall in the back office. If it's another modern art piece, just look. I pulled away the cloth, revealing a gallery wall of family photos, old and new, spanning decades. In the center was a recent picture of Aunt Margaret and me in the hospital, heads bent together over mural sketches, both laughing at something now forgotten. When did you take that? She asked softly. Camila did. Said she wanted to capture the moment we both finally saw each other clearly. Aunt Margaret reached out, touching the photo. You know, I spent my whole life thinking I needed to leave a legacy of wealth and status. I never imagined my true legacy would come from the person I tried hardest to change. Funny how life works out, I said. Funny how love works out, she corrected, even when it's hidden behind anonymous donations and stubborn pride. The setting sun streamed through the windows, casting long shadows across our new beginning. Outside, the sign for Legacy Design Studios caught the light, glowing like a beacon. Ready to head home? I asked. Not yet. She wheeled back to the main space, where our first commissioned piece hung, a collaborative design that merged her business sensibility with my artistic vision. I want to stay a bit longer, to remember this moment. I understood. This wasn't just a studio opening. It was the opening of a new chapter for both of us. One where criticism had transformed into collaboration, where hurt had healed into understanding, and where revenge had somehow blossomed into redemption. You know what the best revenge really is? Aunt Margaret asked, as if reading my thoughts. What's that? Living well enough to turn your enemies into family, and your family into something even stronger. I squeezed her shoulder gently. Welcome to the family business, Aunt Margaret. Welcome home, Mia, she replied. Welcome home. The mahogany conference table stretched before me like a canyon of polished wood, making the single envelope at its center seem impossibly small. $5. That's what my father left me. $5 and a note that read, "For my daughter, who always asks the right questions." I'm Samantha, an investigative journalist, and right now I'm watching my stepsister Kaya bounce in her chair like she just won the lottery, which, essentially, she has. As stated in the will, Mary, our family lawyer, continued in her measured tone, the Burke estate, including all properties, investments, and business holdings, is to be transferred in its entirety to Miss Kaya Jones. This can't be right. The words escaped my lips before I could stop them. Dad always said what, Sam? Kaya's perfectly manicured fingers drummed against the table. That you were his favorite? That you deserved everything because you're so principled? She practically spat the last word. I gripped the arms of my chair, feeling the leather crack under my fingernails. He believed in responsibility, Kaya. In using wealth to make a difference. Not for shopping sprees and Instagram posts. Ladies, Mary interrupted, adjusting her glasses. There's more to discuss. But Kaya was already on her phone, probably texting her entire contact list. Oh my God, wait until everyone hears about this. I need to call my interior designer. The morning sun streaming through the office windows caught the diamond studs in her ears. Dad's last birthday gift to her. I remembered how he'd looked when she opened them, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. There are certain conditions, Mary pressed on, but Kaya was barely listening. Conditions? Whatever, I'll have my people handle it. She stood up, smoothing her designer dress. I need to go plan my celebration party. You'll get the invitation, Sam, if you promise not to be such a downer. I stayed seated as Kaya clicked her way out of the room on her ridiculous heels, leaving behind a cloud of expensive perfume and the echo of her self-satisfied laugh. Samantha. Mary's voice was softer now. Your father was a smart man, I cut in, unfolding the $5 bill. Too smart for this to be everything. Mary's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in her eyes. Sometimes things aren't what they appear. Like how he appeared to favor his stepdaughter over his own child? I stood up, gathering my bag. Or how he appeared to forget everything he ever taught me about responsibility and purpose. The note, Mary began, is cryptic and useless. I shoved it into my pocket, just like this whole process has been. As I reached the door, Mary called out, Your father kept detailed records of everything, Samantha. Everything. I turned back. What are you trying to tell me? She was already gathering her papers, not meeting my eyes. Nothing specific, just, you're a journalist, you know how to follow a paper trail. My phone buzzed. A text from my best friend Skylar. How'd it go? Want to grab coffee? I need to go, I told Mary, but paused at the threshold. Did he say anything? At the end? Mary looked up, her face carefully composed. He said you were your mother's daughter, that you'd understand when the time was right. My mother. The investigative reporter who'd exposed 3 major corruption cases before cancer took her. Dad had always said we shared the same fire, the same need to uncover the truth, the right questions, paper trails, understanding. Suddenly, the $5 felt heavier in my pocket. Thank you, Mary. I pulled out my phone to text Skylar back. Coffee, yes, and bring your laptop. We've got some digging to do. As I walked out of the law office, my stepsister's voice carried from the lobby, already planning her celebration. But for the first time since the reading began, I felt something other than anger. Dad had taught me that every story has layers, that truth hides in the details. And if there's one thing I know how to do, it's uncover the truth. I pulled out the note again, studying his familiar handwriting. The right questions. Well, here's my first one. What was my father really trying to tell me with this inheritance? Something tells me $5 is just the beginning of this story. Look at this. I turned my laptop screen towards Skylar, who was already on her 3rd espresso. Dad made monthly transfers to an account labeled Legacy Fund for the past 15 years. We'd commandeered our usual corner table at the daily grind, surrounded by empty coffee cups and scattered papers. 3 days had passed since the will reading, and I'd barely slept. How much are we talking about? Skylar leaned forward, her investigative instincts, honed from years as my research partner, kicking in. That's the thing. I pulled up another document. The amounts varied, but they always ended in 13 cents, every single transfer. 13 cents? Skylar's brow furrowed. That's deliberate, I finished. Dad never did anything by accident. My phone buzzed with another text from Kaya. Party this Saturday. Wear something fabulous. I ignored it. Have you talked to any of his old business partners? Skylar asked, pulling out her notebook. Most won't return my calls, but I did manage to get coffee with Talia yesterday. You know, the woman who used to run the company's community outreach program? The one Kaya fired last week? Bingo. I pulled out my recorder. Listen to this. Talia's voice crackled through the speaker. Your father was obsessed with this idea of empowering women in business. He kept talking about some grand plan, but the board always shut him down, said it wasn't profitable enough. Did he mention anything specific? my recorded voice asked. Just that he was working on something bigger, something that would change everything. But then, the recording trailed off. Then he got sick, Skylar finished softly. A barista approached with fresh coffees. You guys have been here for hours. Everything okay? Just fine, I smiled, sliding some papers over a particularly interesting bank statement. Working on a story. After she left, Skylar lowered her voice. What about Mary? The lawyer must know something. She's being careful, but yesterday she accidentally left this in my mailbox. I pulled out a sticky note with an address scrawled on it. Storage unit? Dad's private office, the one not even Kaya knows about. Skylar's eyes lit up. When are we going? Now. I started packing up my laptop. But first, what do you make of this? I showed her a photo from Dad's last charity gala. He stood with a group of women, all wearing silver pins shaped like keys. Could be nothing, Skylar said, but she was already grabbing her coat, or could be everything. The storage facility was in an industrial part of town, far from the glossy high-rises where Dad had worked. Unit 13 on 13, of course. Your father really had a thing for 13, huh? Skylar commented as I input the code Mary had provided. The metal door rolled up with a groan, revealing walls lined with filing cabinets and a desk covered in papers. The air smelled like leather and old books, just like Dad's study used to. Start with the most recent files, I directed, moving toward the desk. Look for anything about the legacy fund or those silver keys. We worked in focused silence, the only sound the rustling of papers and occasional muttered observations. Then Skylar gasped, Sam, you need to see this. She held up a leather-bound ledger. Inside, page after page listed women's names, dates, and amounts. In the margins were handwritten notes. Supporting daughter through medical school. Funding tech startup. Legal fees for workplace discrimination suit. He was helping them, I whispered. All of them. There's more. Skylar pointed to a sealed envelope taped to the back cover. My name was written on it in Dad's handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a silver key pin, identical to the ones from the photo, and another note, for my daughter who always asks the right questions. Sometimes the greatest legacy isn't what we leave behind, but what we set in motion. The key opens more than just doors. Dad. Sam. Skylar was staring at her phone. You need to see this too. She showed me a news alert. Burke Industries accused of systematic discrimination against female employees, multiple lawsuits pending. The company Kaya just inherited, I said slowly, has been secretly suppressing women while Dad was secretly supporting them. What are you going to do? I picked up the key pin, feeling its weight in my palm. Dad always said a good journalist follows the story wherever it leads. I think it's time to find out exactly what my sister inherited. This could get messy, Skylar warned. It already is. I clipped the pin to my jacket. But Dad left me this story for a reason, and I'm going to tell it. Looking around the room full of secrets, I finally understood. $5 wasn't my inheritance. The truth was, Kaya's inheritance celebration was exactly as tasteless as I expected. The mansion's marble foyer sparkled with champagne fountains and ice sculptures, while waiters circulated with trays of caviar and gold-dusted chocolates. I adjusted my simple black dress, feeling the silver key pin against my collar like armor. Miss, the service entrance is around back. A security guard stopped me at the door. She's my sister, Kaya's voice rang out. Let her in. She floated down the stairs in a dress that probably cost more than my yearly rent. Sam, you actually came, and you're wearing that. Wouldn't miss it, I smiled, noting how the company's top executives clustered around her like moths to a flame. Quite a party. Isn't it divine? Daddy would have loved it. She grabbed a champagne flute from a passing tray. Though maybe not the cost, but who's counting now? If she only knew what I'd discovered in the past week. The systematic discrimination, the buried harassment complaints, the suspicious firing of female executives, all while Dad had been secretly building his network of support for the very women his company had wronged. Speaking of counting, I said carefully, how are those quarterly reports looking? Kaya waved her hand dismissively. Ben handles all that boring stuff now. You remember Ben, right? From the board? Ben Nelson stood across the room, deep in conversation with other suits. The same Ben who'd orchestrated most of the discriminatory policies, according to Dad's files. Oh, I remember Ben. I touched my keypin. How's he adjusting to his new role? He's been amazing, Kaya beamed. Says we'll double profits by next quarter. Though honestly, I tune out when he talks numbers. Oh, you have to see what I'm doing with Daddy's old office. She dragged me upstairs, chattering about Italian marble and custom wallpaper, but I was watching the reactions to my presence, the nervous glances, the whispered conversations. They knew who I was, what I did for a living. We're gutting the whole floor, Kaya announced, throwing open the office door. That awful old desk is already gone. I stopped short. The desk? Dad's desk? That heavy wooden thing? Ben had it removed yesterday, said we needed a more modern look. My heart raced. That desk had hidden compartments. I'd watched Dad access them countless times as a child. Where is it now? Who knows? The salvage company took it. Sam, are you okay? You look weird. A commotion downstairs saved me from responding. We returned to find Ben making a toast. To new beginnings, he raised his glass, eyes fixed on me, and to leaving the past where it belongs. The crowd applauded. I grabbed a champagne flute and raised it back. To legacy, I countered loudly, and to asking the right questions. Ben's smile faltered slightly. Beside me, Kaya frowned. What's that supposed to mean? Just something Dad taught me. I pulled out my phone and showed her the news alert about the lawsuits. Like asking why our father's company has such an interesting pattern of treatment toward female employees. Kaya's face flushed. That's ridiculous. Ben said those claims are baseless. Did he? Interesting. I spotted Talia entering the party. Maybe we should ask her opinion. You invited her? Kaya hissed. She was fired for incompetence. Was she? Or was she fired because she knew too much? You're being dramatic. Kaya grabbed my arm. This is my night, Sam. Don't ruin it with your conspiracy theories. I gently removed her hand. You're right. It is your night, and everything that comes with it. The money, the power, the responsibility. It's all yours now, including whatever's been happening in that company. Is that a threat? No. I headed for the door, pausing to look back at my sister, suddenly seeming small among all her expensive decorations. It's a warning, because I don't think Dad left me $5 and a note just to be cruel. I think he was trying to tell me something. Sam, wait! But I was already walking out, texting Skylar. Need to find that desk. Tonight. My phone buzzed with her response. Already on it. You'll never guess who bought it. Behind me, the party continued, music and laughter spilling into the night. But underneath it all, I could feel something shifting, like the first tremors before an earthquake. Ben's voice carried from inside. Don't worry about her, Kaya. Everything's under control. I touched my keypin again, thinking of all those women in Dad's ledger. No, I whispered, it's really not. You bought Dad's desk? I stared at Mary across her home office, where the massive oak piece now dominated the room. Technically, my husband bought it at auction. She ran her hand along the worn surface. Beautiful craftsmanship. Shame to let it end up in some warehouse. Skylar circled the desk like a detective at a crime scene. The compartments you mentioned. Any idea how to access them? Dad always said the key opens more than just doors. I fingered the silver pin. Mary, did he ever mention? I can't tell you anything specific, she interrupted, but her eyes flickered to a particular spot on the desk. Attorney-client privilege. But I can leave you two alone with this lovely antique for a few minutes while I make coffee. The moment she left, Skylar and I began examining every inch of the desk. The wood was cool under my fingers as I traced the intricate carvings. Here, Skylar pointed to a tiny keyhole, almost invisible within a decorative flourish. Think your pin. The silver key slid in perfectly. With a soft click, a hidden panel sprang open, revealing a USB drive and another envelope. "Sam," Mary called from the kitchen. "How do you take your coffee?" "Black is fine." I quickly copied the drive's contents to my laptop, while Skylar photographed the documents from the envelope. We barely finished before Mary returned, carrying a tray. Her knowing smile suggested she'd given us exactly enough time. "Find anything interesting?" "You could say that." I showed her the first document we'd discovered, a detailed report of systematic harassment cover-ups at Burke Industries, complete with dates, names, and amounts paid in hush money. "Ben's signature is on everything," Skylar noted, scrolling through the files. "He orchestrated the whole thing. And now he's controlling Kaya," I added, "using her as a figurehead while he runs the company his way." My phone buzzed, a text from Talia. "Need to talk. It's worse than we thought. Meet me at Riverside Park?" "Go," Mary said, reading my expression. "But Sam, be careful. Ben has a lot to lose." 20 minutes later, I found Talia pacing by the river, clutching a manila envelope. "I kept copies," she said without preamble. "Of everything. The real reason they fired me? I was building a case. Your father was helping me, but then he got sick," I finished. "And Ben saw an opportunity. He's been destroying evidence, threatening witnesses. But he missed these." She handed me the envelope. "Your father said if anything happened to him, I should find you. Said you'd know what to do." I opened the envelope. Inside were dozens of statements from female employees, detailed accounts of discrimination, photos, emails, a paper trail of corruption that led straight to the top. "There's more," Talia said. "Ben's planning to sell off the company's charitable foundation, the one your father used to help women start their own businesses." Over my dead body, I pulled out my phone, dialing my editor's number. Time to write the story. "Ben will fight back," Talia warned. "Let him." I thought of Kaya, surrounded by sycophants at her party. My sister needs to see the truth, even if it hurts. Back at my apartment, Skylar helped me organize the evidence while I wrote. Hours blurred together as we built the case, connecting dots Dad had left for us to find. At 3 a.m., my phone rang. "Kaya, is it true?" Her voice was shaky. "Ben just called an emergency board meeting. Said you're planning to publish some ridiculous expose. It's all true, Kaya, every word. Check your email. I just sent you the draft." Silence stretched between us as she read. Then quietly, "There are women I know on this list. Women who trusted the company, who trusted us. What do I do?" She sounded young suddenly, uncertain. "Ben says he'll handle it, but remember what Dad always said about handling things? Face the truth head on," she quoted softly, "even when it hurts." Exactly. I took a deep breath. "The story goes live in 6 hours. You need to decide which side of it you want to be on." "Sam, She paused. "I need to think." After she hung up, Skylar looked at me. "Think she'll do the right thing?" "I don't know." I turned back to my laptop, fingers hovering over the keyboard. But Dad believed in giving people the chance to choose. That's what this whole elaborate plan was about. And if she chooses wrong? I thought of the ledger full of women's names, of Dad's secret support network, of the silver key that had unlocked more than just a desk. "Then we do what journalists do," I said, starting to type. "We tell the truth and let the chips fall where they may." The sun was rising as I wrote the final line, its light catching the silver key pin still on my collar. In 6 hours, everything would change. I just hoped Kaya was ready for what was coming. The story broke like a tsunami. Within hours of publication, my phone wouldn't stop ringing, social media exploded, and news vans crowded outside Burke Industries headquarters. "Your article has over 1 million shares," Skylar announced, refreshing her screen. "And Burke Truth is trending." I was about to respond when my office door burst open. Ben stormed in, his face red with rage, waving a printout of my article. "You little snake," he snarled. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "Exposed the truth?" I stood my ground as he loomed over my desk. "Or did you think those women would stay silent forever?" "I've already called my lawyers. This piece is nothing but lies and speculation. Really? I pulled up the audio recorder on my phone. Want to explain that to the 12 former employees who went on record? Or should we discuss the evidence from Dad's desk? His face paled slightly. Your father was a fool who let sentiment cloud his business judgment. My father, I said quietly, was a better person than you'll ever be. We'll see how righteous you feel when I'm done with you. He jabbed a finger at me. I'm going to what, Ben? Kaya's voice cut through the tension. She stood in the doorway, holding a tablet displaying my article. Threaten my sister like you threatened all those other women? Ben's demeanor instantly changed. Kaya, sweetheart, don't let her manipulate you. This is just jealousy over the inheritance. Stop. Kaya's voice cracked. I've spent the last 6 hours reading everything. The lawsuits, the settlements, the threats. I found the files you thought you'd deleted. Whatever you think you found, I found the truth. She stepped into the office. And now I'm finding my backbone. You don't understand business, Ben sneered. Your father knew that. Why do you think he put me in charge? He didn't, I interjected. Show him, Kaya. With trembling hands, Kaya produced a document. My inheritance came with conditions. Dad left me controlling interest, but with a clause. Any major decisions require board approval. Care to guess who he designated as the deciding vote? The Women's Foundation, I smiled. The one you were planning to dissolve. Ben lunged for the paper, but Kaya pulled it back. Security is on their way up, Ben, along with some people from the DA's office. You're making a mistake, he growled. Both of you. No, Kaya's voice strengthened. The mistake was letting you turn Dad's legacy into this. You're fired, Ben. Effective immediately. The security team arrived, accompanied by 2 serious-looking individuals with badges. As they led Ben away, his threats echoed down the hallway. Once he was gone, Kaya collapsed into a chair. I feel sick. You did the right thing, I said softly. Did I? The stock is plummeting. The board is in chaos. Everyone's calling for investigations. She looked up at me, eyes wet. What do we do now? We? I raised an eyebrow. I know I don't deserve your help. I've been horrible, wrapped up in myself, blind to everything that mattered to Dad. She pulled out a familiar envelope. But I found this in his study last night. Inside was another silver key pin and a note. For my daughter, who must learn to see beyond the surface. Your sister knows the way. He left us both keys, Kaya whispered. He knew we'd need each other. My phone buzzed. Talia was calling. The women from the foundation are gathering, she said when I answered. They want to help rebuild. I put the phone on speaker. All those women Dad helped over the years, they're offering support, expertise, connections. They want to honor his legacy the right way. A network of women helping women, Kaya mused. Like Dad always wanted. Exactly. I touched my key pin. But it'll take both of us, your business skills, my investigative instincts, and a whole lot of apologies from me. Kaya stood up, squaring her shoulders. Starting with Talia. Will you help me fix this, Sam? Through the office windows, I could see the media circus below, the story still unfolding. But for the first time since Dad's death, I felt like I could see the bigger picture he'd planned all along. That's what sisters are for, I said, offering her my hand. Ready to face the press? She clipped on her key pin, a match to mine. Ready to face everything. As we headed for the elevator, Kaya paused. Sam, thank you for not giving up on the truth. Or on me. Dad never gave up on either, I replied. Now let's go make him proud. The elevator doors opened to chaos, reporters shouting questions, cameras flashing. But standing shoulder to shoulder with my sister, both wearing our silver keys, I knew we were finally asking the right questions. And more importantly, we were ready to find the answers together. I'm selling the mansion, Kaya announced, dropping a stack of papers on my desk. 2 weeks had passed since Ben's arrest, and each day brought new revelations about the company's past. You're what? I looked up from the latest batch of emails from women coming forward with their stories. It's too much. She sank into the chair across from me. The marble fountains, the 12 bedrooms, the tennis court. Dad never wanted any of that. I was just trying to prove something. To whom? Everyone? Myself? She twisted her silver keypin. You know what I found in my wing of the house yesterday? 3 pairs of the same shoes, tags still on. Who needs 3 identical pairs of $1,000 shoes? The old Kaya did, I said gently. The old Kaya was an idiot. She rubbed her temples. The foundation needs funding for the new mentorship program. The mansion could cover it for years. Before I could respond, Talia burst in. You need to see this. She turned on the office TV, where Ben's face filled the screen. Burke Industries has lost its way, he was saying from the steps of the courthouse. These accusations are a coordinated attack by bitter former employees and a vindictive heiress. I've done nothing wrong. Turn it up, Kaya whispered. Furthermore, Ben continued, I have evidence that Solomon Burke himself authorized every decision I made. His daughters are destroying his legacy with their misguided crusade. That, lying, Kaya started to rise, but I grabbed her arm. Wait for it. Right on cue, Mary appeared on screen, approaching the microphones. As Mr. Burke's former attorney, I have been authorized to release certain documents that directly contradict these claims. You knew? Kaya turned to me. Mary called this morning. Dad left a sealed envelope with explicit instructions. If anyone ever tried to blame him for the discrimination, release everything. We watched as Mary methodically dismantled Ben's claims, producing document after document showing Dad's opposition to the discriminatory policies. In fact, Mary concluded, Mr. Burke spent years building a secret support network for the very women his company was failing, a network his daughters are now bringing into the light. The reporters erupted with questions, but Ben had already fled into a waiting car. He's scared, Talia observed. Good. Kaya stood up, straightening her blazer. A simple one now, not the designer labels she used to wear. Because we're just getting started. My phone chimed with a message from Skylar. Meeting room, now. Big news. We found her surrounded by printouts, practically vibrating with excitement. Remember those 13-cent transfers? I finally cracked the pattern. She spread out a complex chart. Each amount corresponded to a woman in need. But the 13 cents? It was a code. Every transfer had a matching donation to a separate account. How much? I asked. Millions. Skylar grinned. All perfectly legal, all documented. Your father built a shadow fund right under everyone's noses. But where's the money now? Kaya asked. The door opened and Mary walked in, fresh from her press conference. That's where I come in. She placed a heavy folder on the table. Your father left very specific instructions. The fund was to remain secret until both his daughters wore the silver keys. Only then would its true purpose be revealed. Which is, I prompted, to transform Burke Industries into what it should have been all along, a force for change. The fund doesn't just have money. It has controlling interests in dozens of companies, all led by women your father helped over the years. Kaya sank into a chair. All this time, while I was planning parties, he was planning a revolution, I finished. But he needed both of you, Mary explained. Samantha's determination to uncover truth and Kaya's business acumen. Together, you can rebuild this company into something extraordinary. If you're willing to work together, Talia added. Kaya looked at me, tears in her eyes. I've been so awful to you. You're making up for it now. I squeezed her hand. That's what matters. Ladies, Skylar interrupted, pointing to her laptop. Twitter's exploding. Someone leaked photos of Ben meeting with known corporate raiders. They're planning a hostile takeover. Let them try, Kaya said, standing straighter. We have something they don't. What's that? Talia asked. Kaya touched her silver key, matching mine. Each other, and an army of women who aren't hiding anymore. So, I smiled. What's our next move? First? Kaya pulled out her phone. I'm calling the real estate agent. That mansion is going to serve a better purpose than hosting my parties. And then? She looked around the room at our growing team of allies. Then we show them what happens when women stop competing and start collaborating. Mary nodded approvingly. Your father would be proud. He knew, I realized. He knew we'd need to lose everything to find what really mattered. Including each other, Kaya added softly. Outside, the sun was setting on another day of changes, but for the first time, the chaos felt right. We had a plan, a purpose, and most importantly, we had each other. Ben wanted a war? Fine. He was about to learn what two sisters with their father's fighting spirit could really do. The boardroom crackled with tension as Ben strutted in with his team of corporate raiders. His smirk faltered when he saw the packed room, dozens of women wearing silver key pins, seated alongside the board members. This is a closed meeting, he snapped. Actually, Kaya rose from the head of the table. These women are all shareholders. Thanks to Dad's shadow fund, they own significant portions of Burke Industries. I couldn't help but smile at his confusion. Remember all those women you pushed out? Turns out Dad made sure they'd have a voice when it mattered most. Impossible, Ben sputtered. I've seen the shareholder records. The public ones, sure. Talia stepped forward, distributing documents. But Mr. Burke was quite clever with his shell companies and trust funds. This is ridiculous, one of Ben's raiders objected. We have agreements with major stockholders. Had agreements, Mary corrected, entering with another stack of papers. Those stockholders received some very interesting information about your past dealings this morning. They've reconsidered their positions. Ben's face reddened. You can't what? Kaya interrupted. Protect our father's company? Support the women you victimized? Watch. She nodded to Skylar, who clicked a remote. The boardroom screen lit up with a presentation. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, Kaya began, I present the future of Burke Industries. The next 30 minutes were a masterclass in preparation. Kaya outlined a complete company restructuring, emphasizing ethical leadership and women's empowerment, backed by solid financial projections and support from major investors. The mansion's sale alone funds the first year of our mentorship program, she explained, and our partnership with the Women's Foundation. This is business, not charity, Ben cut in desperately. It's both, I stood up, and we have proof it works. I gestured to the women around the table. Every person here represents a success story. Entrepreneurs, executives, leaders who thrived when given the chance. Dad saw their potential. Now everyone else will too. The vote is simple, Kaya concluded. Continue with the old model, or embrace a future where profit and purpose coexist. Choose wisely. Ben slammed his hand on the table. This company will fail under your leadership. Like it failed when you drove out talented women? Talia asked. When you covered up harassment? When you prioritized greed over growth? I built this company. No, a quiet voice interrupted. All heads turned to the door where an elderly board member stood. Solomon built this company. I've served on this board for 40 years, watched him nurture his vision. And today, for the first time since his death, I see that vision clearly again. One by one, the board members began to nod. Ben's raiders shifted uncomfortably. The vote, Kaya announced, is now open. The next few minutes were tense as votes were cast electronically. When the results appeared on screen, Ben's face went ashen. Unanimous, Mary declared. The restructuring plan is approved. Mr. Nelson's takeover bid is rejected. This isn't over, Ben threatened, gathering his papers. Actually, it is. 2 police officers entered the room. Benjamin Nelson, you're under arrest for securities fraud and witness tampering. As they led him away, his final shouts echoed down the hall. You'll regret this. No, Kaya whispered. I only regret not seeing the truth sooner. The room erupted in applause and congratulations. Women who had once been forced out of the company were now hugging, crying, celebrating their return to power. There's one more thing, I announced, pulling out an envelope. Dad left this with Mary, to be opened when the company was safe. Inside was a single photograph. Dad in his office, much younger, with Kaya and me as children. We were both wearing plastic toy keys as necklaces, playing at being business ladies. He knew, Kaya's voice cracked. Even back then he was preparing us. For this exact moment, Mary added, when his daughters would unlock the company's true potential. Talia approached with champagne. To the new Burke Industries. As glasses clinked and plans were made, I watched Kaya work the room. Gone was the superficial party girl, replaced by a confident leader who knew her worth wasn't measured in designer labels. We did it, Skylar appeared at my side. The story's coming full circle. Not quite, I smiled, touching my key pin. This is just the first chapter. Kaya caught my eye across the room and raised her glass. In that moment, I saw what Dad had always seen. Two sisters with different strengths but the same heart, ready to carry his legacy forward. To asking the right questions, Kaya called out. And finding the right answers, I finished. The boardroom filled with the sound of clinking glasses and renewed purpose. Outside, the press would be waiting for statements about Ben's arrest and the company's transformation. But for now, we celebrated not just a victory, but a vindication of Dad's faith in us. His $5 inheritance had bought something priceless, the truth that set everything right. Ready? Kaya adjusted my key pin, which had become slightly crooked during the morning's chaos. Born ready. I smoothed down my blazer, smiling at our matching silver keys. Though public speaking was always more your thing. We stood backstage at the company's annual shareholders meeting, but this one was different. The auditorium buzzed with energy, packed with faces both familiar and new, women who'd been part of Dad's secret network, now stepping into the light. Your father would be proud, Mary whispered, joining us with last-minute documents. Both the company's profits and its impact metrics have exceeded all projections. Imagine that, I grinned. Doing good actually makes good business sense. 5 minutes, Skylar called out, tablet in hand. Social media's already trending. Everyone wants to know what the Burke sisters are announcing today. Kaya squeezed my hand. Think Ben will be watching from prison? Probably, along with everyone else who said we'd fail. Talia rushed over with breaking news on her phone. The last lawsuit was just settled. All victims will be compensated, and the company's new harassment prevention program is being hailed as an industry standard. Perfect timing, Kaya nodded. Sam, you're up first. I walked onto the stage to enthusiastic applause, the spotlight warm on my face. Good morning. A year ago, I stood in a lawyer's office, holding a $5 bill and a cryptic note from my father. Today, I'm here to tell you what that $5 really bought. The screen behind me filled with images, women receiving business grants, mentorship meetings, new corporate policies being signed into effect. It bought truth, justice, change. But most importantly, it bought something my father knew we'd need: perspective. The perspective to see that true wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in lives improved. Kaya joined me on stage, which is why we're excited to announce the launch of the Solomon Burke Foundation for Women in Business. Every woman who receives support will get their own silver key pin, becoming part of a growing network of mutual support and empowerment. But that's not all, I continued. We're also announcing a partnership with 12 other major corporations to implement similar programs. The ripple effect starts today. The audience erupted in cheers. In the front row, I spotted the elderly board member who'd supported us that crucial day, tears in his eyes as he applauded. Our father left us a choice, Kaya addressed the crowd. We could compete with each other or complete each other. We chose completion, and that has made all the difference. After the presentation, we gathered in Dad's old office, now a shared space for the Foundation's leadership team. The desk had been restored to its rightful place, its hidden compartments now holding new secrets, new plans for the future. I have something for you both, Mary said, producing a small package. Your father left this with very specific instructions, to be opened only when you'd proven you could work together. Inside was a framed photo of Dad with our mother, taken at the company's founding. They both wore silver keys. The original keys, Mary explained. Your mother was his first partner in the mission to empower women in business. He always said the company had two hearts, profit and purpose, like his two daughters. Look at the back, Skylar pointed. A handwritten note was taped to the frame. To my girls, now you understand why $5 was enough. Some inheritances can't be measured in money. Love, Dad. He knew, Kaya whispered. He knew we'd figure it out. Eventually, I laughed, wiping my eyes. A knock at the door interrupted us. Talia with more good news. The mentorship applications are flooding in. Women from all over the country want to be part of this. Then let's not keep them waiting, Kaya said. We've got work to do. As everyone filed out to celebrate, I lingered by Dad's desk, touching the worn wood that had hidden so many secrets. You coming? Kaya asked, pausing at the door. Just thinking about that $5 bill. I kept it, you know. Of course you did, she smiled. The journalist never throws away evidence. Want to know what I finally did with it? What? I opened the desk drawer and pulled out a small frame. Inside was the $5 bill, mounted alongside Dad's note about asking the right questions. Perfect, Kaya nodded. A reminder of where we started, and who helped us get here. I hung it on the wall beside the photo of our parents. Ready to go change more lives? With my sister by my side? Kaya linked her arm through mine. Always. We walked out together, our silver keys catching the light. Outside, a new generation of women waited to receive their own keys, to unlock their own potential. Dad's legacy lived on, not in the money he left behind, but in the truth he helped us discover, that the greatest inheritance is the power to make a difference. And that was worth far more than $5.
The day I signed away my inheritance was the same day I decided to destroy my father. Not with violence or scandal, but with the very weapons he'd taught me to wield: patience, precision, and the law. My name is Olive, and I'm a civil rights attorney, though my father never fails to remind me I could have aimed higher. The Bennett and Associates building loomed over me as I walked through its glass doors, my heels clicking against marble floors that had witnessed 2 decades of my father's ruthless dealings. He's waiting for you, his secretary Monica whispered, sympathy clouding her eyes. She'd watched me grow up in these halls, had seen the gradual shift from daddy's little girl to whatever I was now. I straightened my blazer and entered his office. The place still smelled of leather and expensive cigars, just like it did when I was 12 and would sneak in to read law books while he was in meetings. Olive, he didn't look up from his computer. The papers are on the desk. Sign them. Hello to you too, Dad. I picked up the stack of documents, each page a carefully crafted betrayal. You know, most fathers would at least pretend to feel guilty about strong-arming their daughter out of her inheritance. He finally looked at me, his steel-gray eyes unchanged by the decades. Your brother needs this more than you do. You have your career. Desmond, he needs structure, guidance. You mean control. I flipped through the pages, already knowing every word by heart. I'd spent 3 nights analyzing them with Alina, my colleague and closest friend. He's 32, Dad. When are you going to stop treating him like he's 16? When he stops acting like it. He stood up, walking to his wall of windows. Poetry doesn't pay bills, Olive. Someone needs to protect his future. I bit back a laugh. If he only knew how many of Desmond's poems had been published under a pen name, how his wayward son had built a quiet but respectable literary reputation while pretending to be the family disappointment. Sign the papers, Olive. Don't make this difficult. Like you made it difficult when I got into law school? The words slipped out before I could stop them. When you told me civil rights law was beneath our family's standing? He turned, his face hardening. You're still bitter about that? I pushed you because I saw your potential. You could be running this firm by now. Instead, I'm just helping people who actually need it. What a waste. I grabbed the Mont Blanc pen, a graduation gift from him, and signed each page with deliberate strokes. Each signature felt like laying another brick in the foundation of what was to come. There, I slid the papers across his desk. Happy now? He picked them up, checking each signature. It's for the best, Olive. You'll see that someday. Oh, I'm sure I will. I stood up, smoothing my skirt. By the way, how's the mayoral campaign planning going? He paused, just for a fraction of a second. Most people wouldn't have noticed, but I'd spent my life studying his tells. Who told you about that? I have my sources. I headed for the door, then turned back. You know what's funny, Dad? You always said my biggest weakness was that I care too much about justice, but maybe that's not a weakness at all. Is that a threat? His voice was quiet, dangerous. I smiled, the same smile he'd taught me to use in negotiations. Of course not. Just an observation from your disappointment of a daughter. I opened the door. Good luck with the campaign, Dad. I'm sure all sorts of interesting things will come to light during the vetting process. Olive? His voice stopped me. Don't do anything foolish. I learned from the best, Dad. Everything I do is carefully calculated. I closed the door behind me, nodding to Monica as I passed. My phone buzzed as I reached the elevator. A text from Desmond. Did you do it? Yes, I typed back. Phase 1 complete. You still in? His response came quickly. All the way, sis. He'll never see us coming. I smiled as I stepped into the elevator, remembering the night 2 months ago when I'd found Desmond in his apartment, surrounded by papers and empty whiskey glasses. He'd shown me everything, the offshore accounts, the falsified documents, the trail of corruption our father had built his empire on. We'd stayed up until dawn, plotting and planning, 2 siblings finally united in purpose. The elevator doors opened to the lobby, and I walked out into the sunshine. My father thought he'd won today, thought he'd put his rebellious daughter in her place while securing his golden boy's future. He had no idea that his carefully constructed world was about to unravel thread by thread, law by law. I pulled out my phone again, dialing Alina's number. Hey, I said when she answered. It's done. Time to move to phase 2. You sure about this? She asked. I looked back at the building bearing my family's name. More sure than I've ever been about anything. The game was on, and I intended to win. Desmond's apartment always smelled like coffee and old books. I found him on his balcony that evening, cigarette in one hand, notebook in the other. The city lights sparkled below us like fallen stars. You're smoking again, I said, sliding the glass door closed behind me. And you're judging again? He stubbed out the cigarette anyway, giving me a crooked smile. How'd the old man take it? Like a king accepting tribute. I sat in the weathered chair beside him. He didn't suspect a thing. Desmond laughed, but there was no humor in it. Of course not. In his mind, you're still that little girl desperate for his approval, and I'm still the family screw-up. Speaking of screw-ups, I nodded toward his notebook. How's the new collection coming along? He hesitated, then handed me the leather-bound book. See for yourself, page 43. I flipped through pages filled with his precise handwriting until I found what he wanted me to see. The poem was titled Empire of Glass. Read it out loud, he said quietly. I cleared my throat. In Father's tower of mirrors and lies, where truth distorts like morning fog, I watched him build his kingdom high, on foundations made of fool's gold and borrowed time. My hands started shaking as I continued. In hidden vaults and secret files, the evidence of empire's fall awaits its day of reckoning, when justice claims her due from all. Jesus, Des. I looked up at him. You can't keep this here. If he ever found it, he won't. Desmond took the notebook back. Besides, it's just poetry, right? That's what he always says. My useless hobby. A door slammed somewhere in the building, making us both jump. We'd grown up flinching at sudden noises, at footsteps in hallways. Show me everything, I said, all the documents you mentioned. He led me inside to his study, pulling a false bottom from his desk drawer. Took these from his office over the last year. Whenever he'd call me in for one of his career guidance sessions, I'd wait until he stepped out and photograph whatever I could find. The stack of papers he handed me was devastating. Fake invoices, doctored financial statements, evidence of bribes paid to city officials. My father's fingerprints were all over them, metaphorically, if not literally. This is why he's pushing for the inheritance transfer, I realized. He needs clean money for his campaign, money that can't be traced back to all this. Bingo. Desmond poured us both a whiskey. The prodigal son and the dutiful daughter, publicly supporting their father's bid for mayor with their legitimate inheritance. It's a perfect story. Too perfect. I took a sip, letting the alcohol burn away my hesitation. We need more. These documents are a start, but we need someone on the inside. Desmond's eyes lit up. What about Maria? She's been on the board forever, and she was Mom's best friend before. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. We both remembered the car accident that took our mother 12 years ago, and the way our father had seemed more inconvenienced than grieving. Maria might help, I said slowly. She never remarried after her husband died. Dad helped her keep her board seat when others wanted her out. She owes him. Exactly why she might want to settle that debt. Desmond grabbed his phone. She always liked me. Let me set up a lunch with her. I watched him text, noting how his hands shook slightly. You okay with all this? It's not too late to back out. He looked up, and for a moment I saw the little boy who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. Remember what Mom used to say? The truth always rises like cream to the top. Yeah, I whispered. I remember. Well, I'm tired of watching Dad skim off that cream and leave nothing but sour milk behind. He showed me Maria's response. Lunch tomorrow, 1 p.m. usual place. We're doing this, Olive. For Mom. For us. My phone buzzed. A text from Alina. Meeting set with Wyatt for tomorrow morning. He's interested. Wyatt's in, I told Desmond. If we can get Maria too, we will. He walked me to the door. Hey, Olive. Thanks for not giving up on me, even when I was trying my best to be exactly what Dad said I was. I hugged him, breathing in the familiar scent of coffee and tobacco. You're my little brother. That doesn't change, no matter what. As I drove home that night, I thought about Desmond's poem. Our father had built his empire on glass and lies, thinking himself untouchable in his tower of mirrors. But he'd forgotten one crucial thing. Mirrors can be shattered, and when they break, they cut deep. I pulled into my driveway just as another text came through from Desmond. Found more files, big ones. Come by tomorrow after Maria? Will do, I replied. Sweet dreams, poet. His final message made me smile. Justice never sleeps, sis. Neither do we. The press conference room at Bennett and Associates buzzed with anticipation. I stood at the back, watching my father work the crowd like a master conductor. Every smile, every handshake was perfectly choreographed. My fellow citizens, he began, his voice carrying that practiced warmth he'd perfected over decades. Today, I'm announcing my candidacy for mayor of our great city. Cameras flashed. Reporters leaned forward. I caught Desmond's eye across the room. He was playing his part perfectly, the prodigal son in an expertly tailored suit. With the full support of my family, my father continued gesturing to us, I pledged to bring integrity, transparency, and progress to City Hall. I felt bile rise in my throat but maintained my camera-ready smile. Beside me, Alina squeezed my arm gently, a reminder to stay calm. Mr. Bennett, a reporter stood up. Your children's inheritance was recently restructured. Any connection to campaign financing? My father's smile didn't waver. My family's private financial decisions are exactly that, private, but I can assure you that everything has been handled with complete transparency and legality. I watched Maria shift uncomfortably in her seat. She'd agreed to meet Desmond for lunch, but seeing her reaction now, I wondered if we might have more leverage than we thought. The questions continued for another 20 minutes. I counted 3 times my father lied outright, and 6 times he dodged with carefully worded non-answers. When it was over, he beckoned Desmond and me to his office. "Well done, both of you," he said, pouring himself a scotch. "Desmond, that suit was the right choice. Olive, try to smile more next time. You looked severe. Wouldn't want to tarnish your image of perfection," I muttered. He set his glass down hard. "Don't start. This campaign is crucial for all of us. The connections we'll make, the opportunities, the bribes we'll take." The words slipped out before I could stop them. His face darkened. "Careful, Olive. Very careful." Desmond stepped between us. "She's just tired, Dad. We all are. Maybe we should call it a day?" "Fine." Our father waved us away. "But remember, from now on, everything you do reflects on this campaign. Everything." In the elevator, Desmond let out a shaky breath. "That was close." "Too close," I agreed. "Did you see Maria?" "Yeah, she's nervous. Meeting her in an hour." I checked my phone. 3 missed calls from Wyatt. "Keep me posted. I need to see Wyatt." I found him in his office across town, surrounded by financial reports. My old mentor looked up as I entered, his face grave. "Close the door," he said. I did. "What did you find?" "It's worse than we thought." He spread out several documents. "Your father's been running a sophisticated scheme through the firm. Client money disappearing into shell companies, reappearing as clean political donations." "Can we prove it?" "With Maria's help, yes. She's been signing off on these transactions for years, probably without realizing their full scope." My phone buzzed. A text from Desmond. "Maria talking. It's big. Get here now." "I have to go," I told Wyatt, "but send me everything you found." I met Desmond and Maria at a small cafe far from our usual haunts. Maria looked like she'd aged 10 years since the press conference. "Tell her," Desmond urged gently. Maria's hands shook as she lifted her coffee cup. "Your mother, the accident, it wasn't random." The world stopped spinning for a moment. "What?" "She'd found something," Maria continued. "Documents like the ones you have now. She was going to expose everything. Then the brake lines in her car." "No," I whispered. "He wouldn't." "He didn't do it himself," Maria said quickly. "But he knew. He knew, and he let it happen. I've carried that knowledge for 12 years. Desmond grabbed my hand under the table. I could feel him trembling. "I'll help you," Maria said. "Whatever you need, it's time the truth came out." Back in my car, Desmond and I sat in silence for a long moment. "We can't let this go," he finally said. "No," I agreed, "but we have to be smart. He's already killed once to protect his secrets." "So, what's the play?" I started the car. "We gather everything, the financial records, Maria's testimony, Wyatt's evidence. Then we take it all to the ethics committee, the DA's office, and the press, simultaneously." "He'll see it coming." "No," I said, pulling into traffic. "He'll see what he expects to see. His ambitious daughter and poetic son playing their assigned roles. He thinks he wrote this story. He doesn't realize we're writing our own ending." My phone rang. Our father's number. "Don't answer it," Desmond said. I hit ignore, watching the notification fade away. "Time to go see Alina. We need to make sure every legal angle is covered." "Olive?" Desmond's voice was small. "Mom would be proud of us, right?" I thought of our mother's favorite saying about truth rising like cream. "Yeah, Des, she would be." The truth about our mother's death had changed everything. This wasn't just about inheritance anymore. This was about justice, long delayed but finally within reach. "You're telling me your father had your mother killed?" Alina paced her office, heels clicking against hardwood floors. This changes everything, Olive. I know. I spread Maria's documents across Alina's desk. But it also gives us leverage we never expected. Wyatt leaned forward in his chair, examining a particularly damning financial statement. We need to move carefully. One wrong step, and this could all backfire spectacularly. Or we could end up like Mom, Desmond added from his spot by the window. Alina stopped pacing. He's right. This isn't just about exposing corruption anymore. We're dealing with someone who's willing to commit murder to protect his secrets. My phone buzzed. Another call from our father. Fifth one today. I silenced it. He's getting nervous, Wyatt observed. The campaign's making him vulnerable. He knows it. Good. I pulled out my laptop. Maria's given us access to the board's private servers. Look at this. I pulled up a series of transactions, each more suspicious than the last. Money flowing through dozens of shell companies, always ending up in political action committees supporting my father's various initiatives. Jesus, Alina whispered, leaning over my shoulder. How long has this been going on? At least 15 years, Wyatt said, around the time your mother died. Desmond's phone chimed. Maria just sent more. Dad's calling an emergency board meeting tomorrow morning. He suspects something, I said. We need to move faster. No. Wyatt's voice was firm. That's exactly what we can't do. Rush this and we'll miss something crucial. He's survived this long because he's careful. A knock at the door made us all jump. Alina's assistant poked her head in. Sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here insisting on seeing Olive. Says she's from the board. My heart stopped. What's her name? Jessica? No. Janet? Julia? Desmond asked sharply. Yes, that's it. I exchanged looks with Desmond. Julia had been our mother's secretary before the accident. She'd quit immediately after, disappeared completely. Send her in, I said. Julia looked older, grayer, but her eyes were still sharp as she entered. I saw the press conference, she said without preamble. When I heard about the inheritance transfer, I knew. You're going after him, aren't you? Why are you here, Julia? Desmond asked. She reached into her bag, pulled out a sealed envelope. Your mother gave this to me the day before she died. Said if anything happened to her, I should keep it safe until her children were ready. My hands shook as I took the envelope. Inside was a single USB drive and a handwritten note. For Olive and Desmond, when the time comes to face the truth, love, Mom. I've been watching, Julia continued, waiting for signs that you were finally moving against him. The inheritance transfer was the first. The campaign announcement confirmed it. What's on the drive? I asked. Everything. Your mother was thorough. She documented it all. The bribes, the threats, the shell companies. She even recorded conversations. Wyatt plugged the drive into his laptop. Files upon files appeared. Audio recordings, scanned documents, photographs. 15 years of evidence, preserved by a mother who knew she might not live to use it. Holy shit, Alina breathed, scrolling through the files. This is everything we need, and more. Why didn't you come forward before? Desmond demanded of Julia. Your mother's note said to wait until you were ready, until you started moving against him yourselves. She stood up. I should go. He still has people watching me. Wait, I called as she reached the door. Did you know what he was going to do to her? Julia's eyes filled with tears. No, but I suspected. We all did. That's why I kept this safe all these years. She knew the risks, but she never stopped fighting for the truth. For you. After she left, we sat in stunned silence, the weight of our mother's final gift hanging heavy in the air. We need to move some of this evidence to secure locations, Wyatt finally said. Multiple copies, different places. I'll handle that, Alina offered. I have contacts who can help. My phone buzzed again, a text this time. Olive, My office, 8 a.m. tomorrow, non-negotiable. Dad. He's making his move, Desmond said, reading over my shoulder. Good, I stood up, gathering the documents. Let him. Everything's different now. Mom made sure of that. Olive, Wyatt warned. Don't get cocky. He's still dangerous. I know. I looked at the team we'd assembled. My brother, my best friend, my mentor, and now my mother's final act of protection. But so are we. We worked late into the night, organizing evidence, planning our next moves. Mom's files filled in every gap in our case, provided context for every suspicious transaction we'd uncovered. Tomorrow, I'd face my father across his desk one more time. But now I had something he didn't expect, a mother's love, reaching across years to deliver justice. Ready for tomorrow? Desmond asked as we finally prepared to leave. I thought of Mom, of her courage, of her faith in us. More than ready. It's time to end this. 8 a.m. found me in my father's office, watching him read through campaign briefings as if I wasn't even there. The morning sun cast long shadows across his desk, highlighting the silver in his hair. You've been avoiding my calls, he said finally, not looking up. I've been busy. Too busy for family dinner tonight? Your brother's coming. Maria, too. I kept my face neutral, though my heart raced. Wouldn't miss it. He set down his papers, fixing me with that penetrating stare that used to terrify me as a child. What's going on with you and Desmond? Nothing's going on. Don't lie to me. He stood up, walking to his wall of windows. You two have been meeting secretly, having whispered conversations, drawing my board members into your little conspiracy. Paranoid much, Dad? He turned sharply. You think I don't have eyes everywhere? That I don't know about your meetings with Wyatt? With Alina? They're my friends, my colleagues. They're threats to everything we've built. He moved closer, his voice dropping. Just like your mother was. The air left my lungs. What did you just say? You heard me. His eyes were cold, calculating. Your mother never understood the necessity of certain arrangements. She let her morality blind her to the bigger picture. I see the same weakness in you. Is that what you told yourself? My voice shook with rage. When you had her killed, that she was weak? He didn't even flinch. So, Julia finally showed up with that drive. I wondered when she would. You knew? Of course I knew. I've known for years, but the evidence was circumstantial, the recordings inadmissible. Your mother was careless, like you're being careless now. My phone buzzed in my pocket, probably Desmond warning me about dinner. I ignored it. Here's what's going to happen, my father continued, sitting back at his desk. You're going to drop whatever misguided crusade you're planning. You and Desmond will publicly support my campaign. In return, I'll restore your inheritance, double it even. And if I refuse? He smiled, the same smile I'd seen in photographs with business partners who later committed suicide or disappeared. Ask your mother. You're threatening your own children? I'm protecting my legacy. He picked up a pen, started signing documents. You have until dinner tonight to decide. Bring Desmond with you. 7 p.m. sharp. I stood up, my legs surprisingly steady. You know what your problem is, Dad? You're so focused on your legacy, you forgot about Mom's. He looked up. What's that supposed to mean? Guess you'll find out at dinner. I walked to the door, then turned back. Oh, and Dad, Mom wasn't careless. She was brilliant. She just played a longer game than you expected. I made it to my car before the shaking started. Desmond answered on the first ring. He knows, I said. How much? About the drive, about Julia. He's demanding we back off or else. Shit. A pause. What about dinner tonight? We're going, but first, we need to see Alina and Wyatt, now. An hour later, We sat in Alina's office, planning our counter move. "He's desperate," Wyatt said, "making threats this openly. He's scared." "Good," Desmond replied. "Let him sweat." Alina spread out the latest documents from Maria. "The DA's office is ready. One word from us and they move." "Not yet," I said. "First, we do dinner." "Are you crazy?" Desmond stood up. "He basically admitted to killing Mom. He threatened us directly." "Exactly." I pulled out my phone, showing them the recording app that had been running during my entire meeting with our father. "And now we have him on tape." Alina's eyes widened. "You recorded him?" "Mom's files showed he was always careful about phones and emails. But in his office, in person, that's where he feels safe. That's where he slips up." "Like he just did," Wyatt said slowly. "Admitting he knew about the drive, implying involvement in your mother's death. It's not enough for a conviction," Alina cautioned. "But combined with everything else, it's enough to scare him," I finished. "At dinner tonight, we let him think he's won. Then tomorrow morning, we end this," Desmond said firmly. My phone buzzed again. A text from Maria. "Your father's called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. First item on the agenda, removing me from the board." "Perfect timing," I said, showing them the message. "He's making all the moves we expected." "You really think this will work?" Desmond asked. I thought of our mother, meticulously gathering evidence even as she knew what it might cost her. Mom believed in justice enough to die for it. The least we can do is live for it. 7 p.m., Alina reminded us. "Be careful." "Always am," I said, gathering my things. "After all, I learned from the best." "Dad?" Desmond asked. "No," I smiled. "Mom." The dining room at my father's house felt like a stage set for a Greek tragedy. Crystal glasses caught the chandelier light, casting prism shadows across the white tablecloth. Maria sat to my father's right, her face a careful mask. Desmond and I took our usual places across from each other. "Wine?" My father lifted a bottle of expensive Bordeaux. "Please," I said, watching him pour. His hands were steady. They'd always been steady, even when delivering the news of Mom's death. "Now," he said, setting down the bottle, "shall we discuss your decision?" "Actually," Desmond spoke up, "I'd like to read something first." He pulled out his notebook. Our father sighed. "Must we?" "It's short," Desmond assured him. "I wrote it specially for tonight." Maria gripped her wine glass tighter as Desmond began to read. "In Mother's garden, roses bloom, where secrets lie beneath the loam. Truth plants its seeds in darkness deep, until the day they break for home." The silence that followed was deafening. "Interesting choice of subject," our father said quietly. "Your mother's garden died with her." "Did it?" I asked. "Or did it just go dormant, waiting for the right time to bloom?" His fork clinked against his plate. "I've had enough of these metaphors. What's your answer?" "About the campaign?" I took a sip of wine. "We've decided to support you fully." He relaxed slightly. "Good. I'm glad you've seen reason. In fact," Desmond added, "we've prepared a statement for tomorrow's board meeting about family unity and all that." "Excellent," our father smiled. "Maria, you'll be there, of course?" "Wouldn't miss it," she said softly. My phone buzzed. A text from Alina. "Everything's in place for tomorrow. DA's office standing by." "No phones at dinner," our father chided. I put it away. "Sorry, work never stops." "Speaking of work," he continued, "I've been thinking about your role at the firm, Olive. Perhaps it's time you took on more responsibility, left that civil rights nonsense behind." "Like Mom left her principles behind?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. His face hardened. "Your mother made her choices." "Did she?" Desmond's voice was sharp. "Or did you make them for her?" "Careful, son." "Or what?" I leaned forward. Her brake lines might fail too. Maria's wine glass shattered in her hand, red liquid spreading across white linen like blood. "Oh dear," she said, standing quickly. "I should clean up." "Sit down, Maria." Our father's voice was steel. "All of you, sit down." We sat. "Now listen carefully," he continued. "Tomorrow's board meeting is crucial. The campaign announcement follows immediately after. You will all play your parts perfectly. No poems, no accusations, no clever little hints about the past. Am I clear?" "Crystal," I said, meeting his gaze. "We know exactly what's expected of us." "Good." He dabbed his mouth with a napkin. "Now, who's ready for dessert?" Later, in the driveway, Desmond grabbed my arm. "Did you see his face when I read the poem?" "Yeah, he knows we know." "Think he suspects about tomorrow?" "No." I look back at the house. His ego won't let him imagine we could actually hurt him. My phone buzzed again. Wyatt this time. "Media alert prepared. Waiting for your signal." "Everything's ready," I told Desmond. "Alina has the legal documents. Wyatt has the press release. Maria has the board presentation. And the DA has Mom's files. What if he runs?" "He won't." I got into my car. "He thinks he's untouchable. That's always been his weakness." "Olive?" Desmond leaned in through the window. What if we're wrong? What if he's prepared for this?" I thought of the recording from this morning, safely backed up in 3 different locations. "He's good at playing chess, Des, but Mom taught us to play the long game. She knew someday we'd need to." "See you tomorrow then? Front row for the fireworks?" "Wouldn't miss it." I started the engine. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow we honor Mom's legacy." As I drove home, my phone lit up with one final text. From my father. "Proud of you both for making the right choice. Everything will be perfect tomorrow." I smiled, thinking of Mom's garden metaphor in Desmond's poem. Tomorrow, the seeds she'd planted 15 years ago would finally break through to the surface. Tomorrow, truth would bloom in all its terrible beauty. And our father? He'd learned that some legacies can't be buried, no matter how deep you dig the grave. I sent a group text to our coalition. "Everything's set. See you all tomorrow. Remember, timing is everything." Then I turned off my phone and poured myself a whiskey. One last quiet night before the storm. Mom's favorite saying echoed in my mind. "The truth always rises. Tomorrow it would rise like a flood." The boardroom buzzed with nervous energy. My father stood at the head of the table, shuffling through his campaign notes while board members filed in. Desmond sat beside me, his leg bouncing under the table. Maria took her usual seat, pale but composed. "Before we begin," my father announced, "I'd like my daughter to say a few words about family unity and our campaign vision." I stood, smoothing my skirt. "Actually, Dad, I think Maria has something to present first." His head snapped up. "That's not on the agenda. Consider it an amendment." Maria's voice was steady as she connected her laptop to the projector. "As a board member, I have the right to present evidence of financial misconduct." The room went silent. My father's smile turned dangerous. "Maria, think carefully about what you're doing." "I have." She clicked a button, and the first document appeared on screen. For 15 years, what followed was devastating. Transaction records, offshore accounts, recorded conversations, including his threat to me from yesterday. Board members leaned forward, faces shifting from confusion to shock to anger. "This is absurd," my father sputtered. "These documents are clearly fabricated." "Are they?" I pulled out my phone, played the recording from our dinner. His voice filled the room. "Your mother made her choices." The door opened. Wyatt walked in, followed by 2 police detectives and the district attorney. "Harold," the DA said, "we need to talk." "This is a private meeting," my father snapped. "Not anymore." One of the detectives stepped forward. "We have a warrant for your arrest." On what charges? Financial fraud, corruption, conspiracy to commit murder. The detective glanced at his notepad. Want me to continue? My father laughed, but I heard the edge of panic. This is ridiculous. Olive, tell them. Tell them what, Dad? That you had Mom killed because she was going to expose you? That you've been threatening your own children? You ungrateful, he lunged forward, but Desmond stepped between us. Don't, my brother said quietly. It's over. The boardroom doors burst open again. Reporters flooded in, cameras flashing. Wyatt had timed the press release perfectly. Mr. Bennett, is it true you're being investigated for your wife's death? Did you threaten your children? What about the campaign funds? My father straightened his tie, trying to regain control. No comment. My lawyer will... Actually, Alina stepped forward, legal documents in hand. The firm's board has just voted to freeze all accounts pending investigation, including your personal assets. You can't do that? We just did. Maria stood up. The vote was unanimous. The detectives moved closer. Sir, please place your hands behind your back. For a moment, I thought he might resist. Then his shoulders slumped, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Defeat. As they let him out, he turned to me. I did everything for this family. No, I said. You did everything for yourself. Mom did everything for the family. Desmond pulled out his notebook one last time. Hey, Dad, one more poem before you go. Empire falls on feet of clay. Truth rises like the morning sun. Mother's garden blooms today. Justice's work is finally done. The media frenzy that followed was intense. Desmond and I watched from Alina's office as every major network covered the story. Prominent lawyer arrested, mayoral campaign in ruins, decades of corruption exposed. Mom would be proud, Desmond said softly. She knew we'd figure it out eventually. I handed him a file. Look what Julia found in Mom's old office. Inside were 2 letters, dated the week before her death, one for each of us. Desmond's hands shook as he read his. She knew, Olive. She knew what he might do, but she kept gathering evidence anyway. Because she believed we'd finish what she started. I wiped away tears. She believed in justice more than she feared him. My phone buzzed. Maria. Board voted. You're both reinstated as equal partners. When you're ready, the firm is yours to reform. What do you think? I asked Desmond. Ready to help me turn Dad's empire into something Mom would be proud of? He smiled. Think they'll let me add a poetry division? A knock at the door, Wyatt with more news. DA wants to meet. They're offering your father a deal, but they need your statements first. Tell them we'll be there. I stood up, gathering our mother's letters. But first, Desmond and I have somewhere to go. We drove to the cemetery in silence. Mom's grave was simple, elegant, everything she'd been in life. We laid fresh roses, and Desmond read his poem one more time. We did it, Mom, I whispered. Your garden's blooming again. As we walked back to the car, Desmond grabbed my hand. What now, sis? I thought of all the work ahead, reforming the firm, rebuilding our family's legacy, ensuring justice was served. Now, we make sure the truth stays in the light where it belongs. Together, together. I squeezed his hand, just like Mom always wanted. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters as I walked out into the autumn sunshine. Desmond waited by the car, notebook in hand as always. 25 years, he said as I approached. Think it's enough? For fraud and conspiracy? Yes. I loosened my court attire scarf. For Mom, nothing would be enough. Our father had taken the plea deal, avoiding a public trial that would have dragged our family's name through even more mud. His final words to the judge had been, predictably, about legacy and necessity. Ready to go? Desmond asked. One more stop first. We drove to Bennett and Associates, soon to be renamed Justice Partners. The building looked different now, less imposing somehow. Maria met us in the lobby. The last of the restitution payments went out this morning, she said, walking us to the elevator. Every client who was defrauded has been made whole. And the pro bono program? I asked. Fully funded. Your mother would love what you're doing with her inheritance. In my office, our father's old office, Alina and Wyatt waited with champagne. To justice, Wyatt proposed, raising his glass. To family, Desmond added. To Mom, I said softly. As we drank, I noticed Desmond fidgeting with his notebook. What is it? I found something in Dad's personal files, a letter Mom wrote to him the day before. He pulled out a folded page. Think we should read it? The room went quiet. Maria touched my arm. Whatever you decide, we're here. I took the letter, unfolded it carefully. Harold, by the time you read this, you'll have made your choice. I hope for our children's sake, you choose truth over power. But I know you won't. I've watched you build this empire on lies, telling yourself it was for the family. But families aren't built on secrets and fear. They're built on love and truth. Olive and Desmond are stronger than you know, smarter than you give them credit for. One day, they'll see through the mirrors you've placed around them. When that day comes, I hope they'll remember to choose justice over vengeance. I've made my choice. Whatever happens to me, the truth will rise. With hope for your redemption, Margaret. Silence filled the office. Then Desmond laughed softly. What? I asked. She knew we'd end up right here, in this office, reading this letter. She played the longest game of all. Speaking of games, Alina interjected, the press is waiting downstairs. They want a statement about the firm's new direction. I looked around at our unlikely coalition, my poetic brother, my mother's loyal friend, my trusted mentor, my fierce ally. Let's give them something worth reporting. Downstairs, cameras flashed as Desmond and I stepped up to the microphones. He spoke first, clear and strong. Today marks a new chapter, not just for our firm, but for our family's legacy. My sister and I are announcing the creation of the Margaret Bennett Foundation for Legal Justice. I stepped forward. Using the recovered funds and our personal inheritance, we're establishing a network of legal clinics across the city. Every person deserves access to justice, regardless of their ability to pay. And poetry workshops, Desmond added with a grin, because sometimes justice needs a creative touch. The reporters laughed. Questions flew. What about your father's political connections? Will you continue his business relationships? How do you respond to criticism about family loyalty? I held up my hand. Our loyalty was always to the truth. That's our family's real legacy, not the one our father tried to build, but the one our mother died protecting. Back in the office, I found Julia waiting with a small package. Found this in your mother's old files, she said. Thought you might want it. Inside was a garden trowel, worn with use, and a packet of rose seeds. A note read, for when it's time to plant a new garden. Desmond appeared at my shoulder. Mom's favorite roses. Think they'll grow here? I gestured to the office's small balcony. Only one way to find out. Together, we stepped out into the sunlight. The city spread below us, not as a kingdom to be conquered, but as a community to be served. While Desmond prepared the soil in a large planter, I opened the seed packet. You know, he said, Dad always said you can't build a legacy on ideals. Dad was wrong about a lot of things. I planted the first seed. Mom knew better. She did, Maria said from the doorway, and so do you. I looked at the tiny seeds in my palm, so small yet containing so much potential, like truth, like justice, like love. Ready to grow something new? I asked Desmond. He smiled, taking a handful of seeds. Together, and there, high above the city our father had tried to own, we planted our mother's roses, seeds of truth in soil nourished by justice, waiting to bloom.